We're not live. Oh, now we are.
Now we're live.
We are live. Here we go. All right. We are here. We're doing this for a reason. Ultimately, we're sort of doing this as a launch for Canadian Mental Health Week that starts as of tomorrow and runs from May 3rd to 9th. And of course, we are doing this in support of our fundraiser as well. So we are raising money for the Canadian Mental Health Association to help improve access to services because, let's face it, a lot of us need mental health services, and we are two of those people sometimes. And a large portion of the Canadian population is also feeling that way, as it turns out. There has been the CMHA just recently reported that about 40% of Canadians, according to a study done out in BC, have been experiencing a deterioration of their mental health as a result of the pandemic. And of course, these things were present before the pandemic too. So, at least I think the numbers are about at least 1 in 5 individuals will suffer from serious mental illness at some point in time in their lives, and usually, numbers are even higher often. So yeah. So really, though, what we were doing here today is to talk to you, whoever is
talk to each other.
And talk to each other. And we're going to be joined by some really awesome people who have also decided to come on and share some of their struggles as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened in our history when it comes to mental health. And it's not going to necessarily be the easiest thing to do, but we decided that we wanted to do this. And yeah, I had a thought there and I just totally lost it to what I was going to say.
I'm fairly sure that's going to happen a lot tonight because this is not going to be like our regular run-of-the-mill podcast.
No, we're not.
Where we just fucking shoot shit and get all fucking up in the shenanigans.
Mm-hmm. This is a much less going for comedy approach, which is generally what we are doing because we're normally being silly.
but if anybody knows me, there should be a lot of comedy still in this. Because I don't know how else to deal with this shit. So that's how I'm going to. By the way, anybody who's here, if you want to say hi in the comments on whatever you're watching, so we know you're here. And yeah.
I know what the thing I wanted to say was, for anyone who is watching this, there could be some pretty serious stuff that we discuss. And of course, then as a result, there might be some triggers here for people who have experienced some significant trauma. So please be careful and take care of yourselves and all of that kind of stuff. And of course, if you can't hang out, then that's okay. Oh, hello, people.
Hello, Mandy. Hello, Allison. Our friends.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Much appreciated. And so where do we want to start? That's a tough one. And who wants to start?
What? Oh crap. How about you start? Because I'm also dealing with people.
People.
Yeah, people that are trying to get into this and.
Okay. We have been joined by a name I do not know. Well, hello to you too, to Igor. Okay, so I guess what I would start with would be, well, I guess when I started having interactions with the mental health care system. So I would have been about 12 or 13, and I was diagnosed with depression. And of course, this. There's a number of course of things that sort of led in this way, but there were definitely some genetic factors playing a part of this as well. My grandmother had some serious issues with depression throughout her life as well. So it wasn't really much of a surprise to my family that I was dealing with this kind of stuff. I got referred to a psychiatrist and I got put on antidepressants pretty young. Now they don't do that so much anymore. They've decided that that's probably not the best approach for a teenage girl or teenagers in general, because your neurochemistry is still kind of developing at that point and you can kind of alter its path, I guess. But that was where it started. And it has definitely been a chronic thing throughout my life, really. So I've had probably at least, 5 or 6 very serious bouts of it, maybe more. And there has definitely been some, suicidal ideation. There has been suicide attempts, and it's not something that's going away. unfortunately. But
I don't think it ever does.
No, I don't. I don't. Yeah, I don't believe that those things. Not if it's a chronic condition. There are certainly times where some people will go through a bout of depression related to a specific thing, but and that's a natural reaction to a death or illness or of grief of any kind, really, loss of a relationship. But it's a little different when it's something that's just sort of ever present. Oh, hello, Megan. And there's another individual. Oh, it's Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Oh, right.
So yeah, it's just, but it's gotten a little bit more complicated as I get older, I guess. When you're young, well, it's still awful, but it was usually easy to sort of, it felt easier to deal with somehow.
Well, I think because when you're younger, you have less of everything else to deal with.
Yeah, maybe.
As an adult, still feeling the same woes, the same depression, the same anxiety, the same everything, but then having to deal with adulty shit.
Yeah, like
it kind of compounds it.
Work and paying rent, and if you have children, like the responsibilities that come with being an adult. And it has also been further compounded with more significant anxiety as I got older. When I was younger, I don't think it manifested in the same kind of way. It probably did, and I just didn't recognize it. But now I feel it all the time with this constant sort of pressure to do things. I don't rest, and that's, yeah. It has been a tough time lately for me. The pandemic really kicked me in the ass, to be blunt. It took away most of the things that I used to cope. A lot of the things that I would use to make myself feel better. The salves, as it were. Because I mean, I don't generally medicate. I certainly advocate medication. That's not the issue. I just generally don't use that approach. But in the absence of all of the other things that I have normally used to make myself feel better, that is starting to seem like a better option in the sooner kind of thing. So yeah, I have a lot of trouble with sleeping. I don't do it well. I tend not to. I can stay there when I get there. Yeah, so there's some other folks chiming in that the pandemic has been really hard. For me, my friends are the thing that keeps me laughing. And if I can't go out and spend time with them, and if I can't do things like go out to a restaurant or go to a cafe and all of that kind of stuff, it means that I don't get that relief. And as much as I like my alone time, because I do, I love having time to myself. And when I don't have that, that's a different problem. But not being able to sort of escape that is a problem for me, for sure. So yeah, sleeping bad, eating, nothing's, I don't want anything. But I still eat stuff that maybe isn't the best because I want comfort foods all the time. And I just feel really, I don't know, feeling really hopeless a lot of times. And of course, on top of all of this, I'm trying to do a fucking PhD. So,
yeah, there's the big one. Why don't we bring that up? That through the pandemic, through all this other stuff, you're trying to do a PhD.
Yeah. Which, when you lose the collaborative environment that you're used to working in to help, to sort of help push you forward and also to resource, right? Like it's not just about motivation. It's also literally about, having access to information. All that disappears. And my institute is also in this weird phase where it's moving to another city. So some people are there and some people are still in the old city, and everything is different from what it was like 2 years ago. And my brain hasn't really figured out how to deal with all of that shit yet.
See, what's sad on my part is that the pandemic itself had absolutely no effect on me.
No.
Because 2 years ago, before the pandemic hit, I was still doing sweet fuck all with my life. I mean, other than working and the normal stuff, but I hadn't seen a friend. I hadn't left my house. I hadn't whatever in years before that, because this is what I do. Because like you went back in time when I dealt with all of my depression, anxiety back in the day when I was younger. It was by doing other shit that would get attention, but divert the attention away from my issues. So I'd act out. I'd do stupid shit. I would entertain. I would blah, blah, blah. Easier to do when you're a kid because you can get away with doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
You can get away with entertaining the masses with fucking shenanigans. When you get to be an adult, those same things don't work.
Yeah.
I can't leap off the roof of the school and try and land on the play structure because I'm passively aggressively trying to hurt myself at the same time as entertaining all of the other kids who now may think that I'm slightly cool for a couple of minutes and may not fucking push me down in the hallway later because they're like, hey, that's the moron that fucking jumped off the roof of the school. Can't really do that at 45.
Yeah.
People frown upon those silly shenanigans when you now do it as an adult, trying to not deflect attention away from yourself, but trying to hide what basically I became a clown and an alcoholic when I was very, very young to hide what was inside me and still give me the ability to hang out with my friends and be happy or fake happy and hang around them and not feel the pressure or the anxiety of everything else. So I just basically became what they needed me to be, and that distracted me from what I needed me to be. As an adult, that's not really as much of an option because people don't need you or want you anymore to be the center of attention or the constant sense of comic relief and shit. They want you to be like a real person. Well, unfortunately, the real person that I am isn't always the coolest to be around. So this whole adulting thing it's fucking shit. That's what it is.
It's not so great.
No. But I have realized that now that the pandemic has dragged on for a while, it is starting to get to me too.
Yeah.
Because now it's that forced thing. The first year of the pandemic, I didn't even, if somebody hadn't told me that there was a pandemic going on, I wouldn't have even known. Because I still go to work every day because I have a job that is an essential service. So I got to go in every day. I come home, I hang out with the pups, I do what I do. And honestly, I didn't even think anything was different. Hey, now that it's dragging on a little bit, and I guess in the same token is now because of the podcast, because we started this literally when pandemic hit too.
Yeah, without knowing. Yeah.
Yeah. But because of the podcast, we've met a ton of people.
Yeah.
Oh, and now I'm like, oh shit. I have new people that I could hang around with and shit like that. Or even older people, some of my older friends that have grabbed on to the podcast and they're like, holy fuck, you're doing a podcast? And I'm like, yeah, fuck, we're doing a podcast. And now I'm talking to old friends again. And now I can't get out to see them. Like our good friend Cliff, who just chimed in with a wave. Yeah. Who, of course, is part of Civilian, who we have had on the show and mentioned on the podcast and played music, and they're fucking fantastic and supporters of ours. There's a fucking fella that I would like to fucking pal around with, even though he doesn't want me to know where he lives.
Alex is also here from Taming Sorry, and that's
Alex.
They're one of our chatters is asking if they can ask questions.
Yes,
and yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're here. Like if you're welcome to ask us anything. You know, if it's too personal, then maybe we would say no. But for the most part, we're out here kind of like, wow, here we go. So,
well, if one of us says no, the other one will not, because I don't know what that means.
Okay.
I don't know what the word no means.
Oh,
I'll just answer whatever fucking question comes up, if I can, because that's what we're here to do.
Indeed.
So,
yeah. And if anybody wants to come on and join us, send us a message, because we would be happy to bring you on if you wish to talk yourselves.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna hit this up for a little while longer ourselves, just to try and get the ball rolling. So maybe the people who want to come on feel a little more comfortable in doing it. Yeah. Blah blah blah, and then okay, do you want to read that one?
Okay, so it's someone's asking about whether or not they would, if they feel so lost. Like, what if you feel so lost and you have memory loss and can't enjoy anything and have body aches? Well, that we're not psychologists. That I'm going to say first of all, but that certainly sounds like something I have experienced with depression, and I would certainly recommend, if you can, to get in contact with your family doctor and see about getting referral for some assistance. And talk to your friends, anybody. We actually also at the bottom of this, if you are having a really serious crisis right now, call the crisis lines. They are there to help, and they're open 24/7. So, if it's 3:00 in the fucking morning, which is what happens to me all the goddamn time, I get really sad and really lonely in the middle of the night, and I don't want to call people and bother them and say, please help. So, but at least I know those things are there in case.
Well, see, that'd be the one main point that I would add on to this, is that there's probably people out there that you can reach out to that you don't think you can.
Yeah.
As in friends, family members, blah, blah, blah. I remember I personally hid everything from everybody, because it did happen to me that when kind of they looked behind the curtain a little bit and saw what was going on, some of them didn't deal with it well. Kind of on my part, kind of on their part, because when you don't let friends see who the real you is for years upon years upon years, and then you just kind of drop an entire bag of shit on them, I can see why they may have fucking fled in a way. I'm never going to be angry with them, because if I had have just been honest with them and myself from the start, they would. I basically catfished my friends in a way. Like, I emotionally catfished my friends, I guess is what you would call it. But there's always those ones, which I have found later, that do understand, and of course do have their own issues and do have their own stuff. And you can always find that one or couple of people that you can actually kind of rely on. So, I mean, I get that some people don't want to put their shit on other people, which was one of my main problems. And that's one of the main problems of having any mental health issues, is not knowing who to turn to or where to go. But I guarantee you that there's always people out there willing. And if it's not somebody close to you because you don't want to burden them, then, as Karen said, across the bottom of the screen, and I will be switching them up every so often.
Yeah.
There's telephone numbers and websites and everything that you can go to and find professional help if that's what you want. Moving on from that, one of our followers, one of our people tuning in, one of those fuckers down in the comment side there.
One of those awesome fuckers, yeah.
Yeah, those awesome fuckers. Just asked how we're dealing with the lockdown.
Fuck. This one is hard. I just moved back to my hometown, and all I want to do is spend time with people that I care about. And I can't. And I have to go back to Germany in less than 2 weeks, and I don't want to go. So yeah, this one is bad. I get it, and I want it, because the cases are awful, and I think that we need to help reduce the burden on our healthcare system. I know it's necessary, but it's fucking killing me. Yeah, I miss my people. So yeah, I haven't ever called one of the crisis lines. Michelle was asking about this, but I would. I would do that sooner than making other decisions. I would. So yeah. So this lockdown fucking blows. I can handle it when it's the you should not have people, like groups of people in your house kind of level kind of stuff, but they're not really even being able to like go and have a walk outside with someone. That kind of shit is really hard. so yeah. And the situation that I'm going back to in Germany is much the same. It's the lockdown there is also really, really strict, and and I don't live with anybody there. So at least here, I have company a couple of weeks at a time. But yeah.
Yeah. See, the first lockdown, that was just kind of this is a necessity. This is what we need to do. And according to what everybody was saying, it was supposed to basically straighten the curve. It was flatten the whatever, blah, blah, blah. That one was easy to take. But like you said, this one just feels like a fucking kick in the dick because we're so long into this. Mm-hmm. And I feel that like had everything else worked and done what it was supposed to do, this one wouldn't need to be here. So I'm almost angry.
Yeah.
As a way, and I'm not angry at any specific person or anything, because like this is kind of an unprecedented, well, not an unprecedented, I know we've had pandemics in place before, but it's a weird situation. And because we're talking about mental health, I get that people can't handle this, and people are doing what they need to do to get a sense of friendship and community, and they're probably breaking COVID lockdown rules, and shit's numbers are still skyrocketing and they're still high and blah, blah, blah. So that's what this lockdown is to me. It's almost a slap in the face for not doing, and not just us, I mean the government, I mean everybody else, not doing it right from the start.
Yeah.
So this one just, it's, and like I said, now I'm finally at the point where the pandemic is getting to me. Mm-hmm. So now the lockdown on top of that.
Yeah.
So we have some friends tuning in that say you can always talk to them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks. One of our viewers is sort of commenting on how how they're starting to project the negativity, and they're not sure how to break out of that. And I don't have solutions. All I know is that try and spend time around people that you love and that love you and that want to actually that can be comfortable with sharing how you feel. This is something that actually is important for Tyler and I too. We when we talk, we are open and honest with each other, and that is beneficial for how we do this podcast together, right? Because sometimes there are times when we're both like, no, we're not there, man.
Yeah, I'll say one thing on that matter. Mm-hmm. Is the one thing I'm gonna say about this, because I did it myself, is don't pull away, don't hide. If you feel like you're burdening people, fuck it, burden people. Mm-hmm. True. Because I went and I disappeared and I sat by myself and I drank a 2-4 a day by myself in an apartment for 15 years without a single friend. Didn't talk to my family for fucking about the same 15 years. Mm-hmm. Had 3 suicide attempts. And yeah, that's not what you want to be. There's got to be somebody. There has to be somebody out there that will take the burden. And I'm not saying fucking throw it all at them. But don't take it upon yourself either. Because that's what I did. I took all of the shit that I was feeling, didn't want to burden anybody else with it. So I buried it, and that's not the way to go. Because I've now lost about 20 years of my life. I don't remember about 10 to 15 years of my life because of alcoholism and drug addiction, and have a complete memory wipe of probably most of my fondest memories. Because I'll admit that when I was drinking and doing all that stuff, I had some really great times. that I don't clearly remember anymore. What I do remember is the shit times that I sat by myself and did fuck all. And so that's not the memories that you want from this going forward. So don't just find somebody, anybody. Again, professional, friend, family, somebody, and burden the fuck out of them. It's not something you can carry on your own. I don't care. Mental health is not something, any mental health illness, depression, anxiety, shit is not something that you can carry yourself. Even if it's just yours, it's too heavy a burden. That's all I got.
There's a lot of one of the things that I see on like the mental health websites at like this Canadian Mental Health Association is recommendation of like getting involved in like community groups and things like that. It's especially if you are the type of person to retreat and have a small social circle. I mean, it's hard to make friends as a grown up. It's fucking hard. And the I have been fortunate in doing the kinds of studies that I have done because it sort of has constantly thrown me into new groups of humans. So I've been able to keep a pretty good sized network of people around me, and thank God for them, because really, like seriously, they make my life. But excuse me. But as for most typical adults, like you go to work and you've got, your small group of people that you work with, and then you come home and, you have your friends that you've kept and all of that kind of stuff. But sometimes it's, if you want to branch out, you got to find new ways of doing that. And it's really hard when you're already feeling really fucking low to try and reach out to someone new. So, sometimes getting involved in some kind of community project can kind of help you focus your energy somewhere else. And then in the process, you meet new people.
I'll admit that this podcast has helped me.
It's been important for me too.
I mean, all we do is shoot shit and fucking whatever about fucking pop culture, fucking whatever. Mm-hmm. But being able to talk, even if it's just about movies and comic books and whatever, again, it's getting together with somebody, you in particular, on a weekly basis and fucking having an outlet of something.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that my depression and everything has stopped me from doing is expressing all my creativity. Yeah. I have 7 or 8 scripts and screenplays and whatever on the go that I can't finish because I have a mental block. I have art pieces that I haven't finished drawing because I just can't. I have blah, blah, blah. So figuring out this as something to do has given me the outlet that I need from the others. And the difference is that all that other shit is kind of a singular solo thing. You're right. You're by yourself. You draw, you're by yourself. So I would say, and a couple of years ago, I joined a softball league and a volleyball league and did some shit outside. And actually, it was some of the better. It was like the 2 years before the pandemic hit, and I was having a blast. So again, I'll go back to the don't do anything by yourself.
Yeah.
Try and find people, even if it's joining a league, a club, a league, whatever. If you're into gaming, then find like a community. If you're into sports, once this is all over, join a league, do something just to surround yourself with some people that may have some commonality with you. So you and me had a commonality of, well, one, we were former things, hence the X in experience, blah, blah, blah. But we've managed to stay friends. We still have so much in common when it comes to movies and music and everything else. So we figured out a way to fucking make that a part of our lives. Yeah. And now I have an outlet on almost a weekly basis to get everything out of my head.
And it's allowed us to sort of test new boundaries of ourselves too, right? Like there were things that we were scared of doing before we started the podcast, and now we're like, oh, we can do that. Look at us, we did it.
Here's one thing that I was scared to do before. and couldn't. I couldn't even return shit to a store because that would mean having to talk to somebody in not a confrontational, but in like in that type of way.
Yeah. Whereas, the risk of what felt like a risk of confrontation, even if it wasn't likely at all, it still felt like that could happen.
Yeah.
That there would be a challenge kind of thing. So.
Like I can't make a phone call. I literally have a phobia of the phone. I can do this to a point, but a phone call is something outside of my realm of comfort. Just there's weirdness to the phone. There's silences where my brain starts going on a little tangent as to why there's a silence, what's going on the end of the phone, what are they thinking? Did I say something wrong? Did I blah, 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 blah. So just doing shit, like even reaching out to the bands that we've reached out to, even though they've all showed up and we've talked to them all and they're absolutely fabulous people, reaching out to them.
Scary.
It was fucking scary. But one of the things that I did do, and we did reach out to somebody, and it's kind of, it was this.
Hey, Tyler. Hey, Karen, and all your listeners at the Pop Cult Experience Podcast. My name's Daryl. I'm in the Strumbellas, and I wanted to thank you for having me here today to raise awareness and funds for mental health. Mental health has been a part of our band. All 6 of us have experienced mental health challenges in different ways, and that's what makes mental health so challenging. It's different for everyone, and everyone handles it differently. So this is a really important cause, and I'm proud to be part of it. So continue to support mental health, continue to talk about it, and continue to ask for help. Wishing you all the best.
Oops.
That was really special to hear from them, and we know that they that the Strumbellism, as he said in the video, that they've all dealt with different mental health issues themselves, and that's the thing. It is so fucking common. And I remember when I was young and first I was the only one I knew that had been diagnosed with depression, and like, I feel like such a fucking weirdo, like I realized, that my grandmother had this. So, okay, it seems like it's a family thing, but that didn't mean that it was common, and that I didn't feel okay talking about it either. Like, why did I have to be sad about it? I was like, I grew up in a a financially comfortable home. I had parents that loved me. They're a little fucking strict, but like they're not abusive. And it was like, I didn't understand why I didn't feel okay. Like why nothing felt all right ever, kind of thing. But had I had a better understanding of what the disease was, maybe I wouldn't have internalized that and made it something that was wrong with me. It's just, it's a symptom of, things not being in balance kind of deal. And I don't unfortunately get to have control over my neurotransmitters. That's not something that is outside of my purview. I cannot do anything about those things. So, but I think that talking about this kind of stuff is super important, because if we recognize recognize the commonality of it, and also see the variation, right? Because not everybody experiences it in the same kind of way. Like you ended up turning to substances. And while I certainly did an awful lot of substance abuse, it's not the same. I didn't go to the same depths that you did in that regard. But there were definitely weeks I didn't get out of bed. So, there was some definite lack of personal hygiene and things of that nature, for sure.
Yeah, well, my turn to some of the substances was less an escape or a dealing mechanism, and more it was the only way I could continue to wear the mask, if you can say. Because again, my entire childhood and teenage years were being something else. And the only time I could still find that smile and the happiness per se, the happiness and shit was when I was drunk. So I literally had to keep myself drunk 24/7 in order to just hang around with people and give them the person that they wanted me to be. So I used the drink less as a cope and more as a disguise.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. JS is asking about how to join in, so I think we have to send him the thing.
Yeah, we were going to do the first half an hour, just the both of us, and now I think I saved the link. Anybody who, I know we have a couple people set up that already wanted to come in, so I will send the links to them. We'll get them in for a little while, and then if anybody else out of the randomness, people who are just joining in but feel like they have something to say, we can bring you in a little bit. It's just right now we had people that were kind of scheduled that wanted to come on and say some things. So I'm going to send out that link to everybody.
Allison has brought up about bullying, and
okay, well, we can have this conversation if we want.
Oh boy, yeah, that bullying was a major issue for myself, and when I was in elementary school, high school, for sure. Like, I had a girl try to set my hair on fire, and there was people calling me a slut in class, and like in front of a fucking teacher. Nothing happened to them. Like, they didn't get suspended. And I am really glad that they kind of have gotten very strict about anti-bullying behavior, they have gotten strict about bullying behavior in schools. And I've heard some people be like, oh, but how are the kids going to toughen up? Fuck that shit. I am sorry. Pardon me. That was really loud and I was really angry. You are not going to get stronger from being openly picked on. That is a pile of bullshit. So, yeah, I didn't trust people for a very long time because of.
I still don't trust you, assholes. Some of you are okay. No, but for me, when I was a small little baby, probably a little bigger than that, I took myself down a set of basement stairs in my little walker when I was like just around 1 or 1.5 or whatever, and blew my 2 front baby teeth out of my head before they'd even grown in. So I didn't have front baby teeth. By the age of, I think, 2 or something, I had my 2 front adult teeth in my head. So my entire public school years and middle school years, I had a head this big with 2 giant fucking front teeth. So I had to deal with that. 2, I was a small little round kid. So I had to deal with that. Then there was about 2 or some years in middle school where I was gay. Wasn't gay, but everybody decided that I was because some girl who I turned down for something decided to put out the rumors that I was gay, and she was one of the popular kids. So for 2 years in middle school, from grades 7 and 8, I was the gay kid, even though I wasn't, even though there's nothing wrong with it. But at the time, it was a huge thing.
That was, a terrible insult and all of that. And all because, you didn't want to go on a date with her, kind of thing. So, because you couldn't have possibly rejected her for any other reason other than being gay.
No. So anyway, yeah, we've had the bullying things ourselves, and honestly, I don't know how to get past it personally. I mean, I got through it, but it
affects your body image for like the rest of your fucking life. Like, it really does. I mean, there's no amounts of. I'll never feel at ease walking into a new situation because I will sort of always be a little bit worried about whether or not I might have to go on the defense, I guess.
Yeah. Bullying is a hard one because it's not on you, and that's what's hard about dealing with bullying and being bullied is there's not a shit ton that you personally can do about it. If people have decided that they are going to attack you and whatever, other than talking to the appropriate people about it and seeing that if you can get some help and support, the bullies themselves are the ones that are at fault here.
Yeah.
And you can't fix them yourself. So bullying is probably one of the hardest ones to deal with because dealing with yourself in a confrontational way or whatever is probably not going to end very well.
No.
2, if you go and talk to somebody about it, then you are looked upon as being weak, being a tattletale of sorts, whatever.
I think that's less so now, but when
was lesser now, huge back then.
Yeah, more prevalent then.
And that's the only way that I can, like, for the small amount of time that people might look at you in a slight side-eyed way because you went and got the support and the whatever that you needed, that's going to be a shit ton better than the years upon years that you're either still going to continue to get bullied or have to deal with the repercussions of the bullying. So I would just say, again, like all other matters of mental health, you just have to open up, talk to people, get it out there.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what we experience for bullying is trauma. And that is, it's I'm not going to maybe go so far as say PTSD, but it is a form of trauma that is still obviously kind of hanging out there and could probably use some work. The dealing with violence is another thing altogether, though, that one of our commenters here has had some experience, and that is most assuredly trauma. And I would absolutely recommend seeing somebody to get some help with that, because that kind of shit doesn't go away. When I was 13, I saw my best friend get held up against a baseball diamond with a knife to her throat. And you can't, you don't forget that shit ever, because we were kids. And what could a 13-year-old girl have possibly done? Yeah. And that kind of stuff just stays. And I'm glad that nothing went further than that, but at the time, but still, there's, when you've had instances of violence that is in your life, when you have been a victim of violence, you definitely need to seek some assistance for that. That's incredibly damaging stuff.
Okay. We're going to take a 2-minute little thing here because I'm going to send out a couple of invites. I just sent one out to JS. While we take this break, if anybody else from the people who said that they were going to join want to get in on the conversation, you can DM us through whatever media that we tend to talk through and shit like that. For our little break, we are going to enjoy how about a little bit of this. So JS, your invites in Facebook. we would like to thank Taming Sari for that.
Very much.
Wake Up Boy.
Much. Yep.
Fantastic song. If you read into the lyrics, you'll understand that it has a little something to do with what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Hold on. I'm going to try and get this so that I turned off my light. That's what I did. No, that's not working as well as I want.
You're very fuzzy in the background there.
I see that, but that's okay. That's still better than well, if I lean back here, whatever. You get the strange abstract of my green screen background, because it's either that or it's my room, and that seems weird.
It's all good.
Yeah. So anyway, but yes, there. I long for a world where we can feel safer talking about this kind of stuff amongst each other in just a more general sense, as opposed to feeling like you kind of have to hide it.
We have a guest.
Oh, wonderful! We are being joined.
I
long for a world where we can feel safer talking about this kind of stuff amongst each other.
Rohan, are you listening to us right now?
Just in a more general sense, as opposed to feeling like you kind of have to hide it.
We have a guest.
Oh, wonderful! We are being joined.
We're hearing ourselves.
We are.
We're a couple seconds behind.
We can feel safer talking about this kind of stuff amongst. Whoa.
Rohan, you there?
Sorry, yeah, I'm there. I think there was a bit of a lag. I'm here now, though. Yeah.
Perfect. So, everybody, this is Rohan, who, if you listen to the podcast recently we had on, you may know him better as Resist the Throne, a local musician who wanted to come on and talk about it because he himself has dealt with, I believe he said, bullying. And, of course, the pandemic. Being a musician has to be hard on them as much as anybody else.
Yeah. So please, feel free to share some of your experiences if that's what you'd like to do.
So first of all, thank you very much for having me on. So yeah, my main experience comes from bullying. When I was in grade 7, I was bullied a lot by a lot of people because I'm brown. So it was a lot of racist bullying. There were other reasons too, but the main one was because of this. So yeah, that had a really negative impact on my mental health, in the sense that it affected my confidence, my sense of self-worth. There were times where I was wondering if what these people are saying is possibly true, because when there's so many people saying that to you at a younger age than I am now, it does have an impact for sure. So that's my main experience as well. Of course, during the pandemic now as well, there have been other things, but the majority of my experiences were from bullying in grade 7.
Yeah, it seems like middle school time is a really rough period for a lot of people. And then, you would have the extra burdens from, being anything other than, European stock is not, it just makes it all that much fucking harder. I can only imagine. That's, yeah. Ugh. So did you find that kind of behavior changed as you got older? That people stopped being like that with you, or were you just finally fuck you?
Yeah, there's a bit of both. At first there was nothing that I really had to kind of do about it. Obviously I could the people I could talk to were my parents. I didn't talk to I didn't have a whole lot of friends back in that stage, but what helped me kind of get out of it was music a lot, actually. So I started playing the guitar, and that's when things got a lot easier to handle for me. So it's not that the amount of bullying itself got reduced. It's that the other things in my life were starting to pick up a lot more. So it was easier to kind of deal with it.
Okay.
So you basically gave yourself a distraction of sorts.
Yeah.
So you could get through it, which is not a bad thing. No. I mean, because half the time your issues, the bullying, anything isn't going to go away. So it's best to fill your time and yourself with things that are better than and a distraction of. So that's one thing that we can pass on is, again, as we've talked about, sometimes it's not just essentially the dealing with it. Sometimes it's the the fact of filling yourselves with other things, with other projects, with hobbies, with anything else that can distract you from time to time and have you generally happy and excited about doing anything else than just wallowing in yourself.
One of the big things I learned to do was give myself little wins. So I would like set small goals but small, but still significant in some kind of way, whether it was a presentation at school or whether it was like, I'm going to clean the kitchen. Because sometimes the kitchen did not get cleaned for a really long time. And, when I would do those things, when I would achieve this thing that I had sort of set as a goal, I would give myself a pat on the head. You'd be like, hey, look, yep, you did the thing. And even though it was hard, you did the thing. And I think that when you delve into something creative as well, it's kind of like it's an outlet and it's a reward also, because you get something out of that. Like you get the emotional release, but then you've made something, that's amazing. Now you're, of course, finishing high school. How the fuck was high school with pandemic? Like that must have been brutal. I can't. It's usually such a social time for people, and then to not get that experience, like, how did you manage?
Yeah. So for reference, I'm in grade 12 right now. So like grade 11 is when it kind of started. At first, I actually found the first during March, I guess, to the end of grade 11. For me, it wasn't as hard because there wasn't a lot of it was kind of like I said earlier, it was 2 weeks to kind of flatten the curve. There wasn't a lot of additional stress about the pandemic. And at least for my school board, our grades actually didn't count for online school back then. But it was grade 12 when things got a lot more challenging. So it's a lot more intense on online school and stuff. So what I've been doing to deal with it more is mostly through music actually is I've been trying to write a lot more songs. The one thing that I found about this pandemic is there's certainly no shortage of inspiration of things to write about. So I've been really trying to distract myself and also be productive with that time in terms of writing songs and just jamming out on my guitar and stuff. And that's something that's helped a lot. Keeping in touch with my friends virtually has also been has also helped a lot throughout this, because I know if even though it sucks the lockdown and everything like that, not being able to go out and see people, I'm really glad that we do have technology to be able to be able to keep in touch with people. That's helped me personally a lot. So yeah, that's been mainly how I've been dealing with it.
I can. I mean, everything that that people tend to use for traditional ends of school celebrations, things grad and all of this kind of stuff. All of that is going to be weird, and I don't know if I remember I had friends whose kids were graduating last year. And it was a drive up ceremony, basically. So you would drive to this table that was pulled out of the cafeteria or something like that. And it'd have congratulations, graduates. And you would go and you would pick up your diploma from one person with a box and then get your photo taken and then off you go. It was just oh, that's not the same. Now I didn't have a traditional graduation anyway, because I went to an alternative high school, but but still, it just seems so bizarre. And, prom, are you guys going to do an online prom or something like that?
Yeah, there's, they're going to have they're going to have one in August, it looks like. And if that doesn't work, then they're going to push it back to December. So they're still doing that. It's, the details of it are still not, I don't think they're entirely confirmed yet, but they're still trying to do that, which is good.
Now, seeing as you are a substantial amount younger than either myself or Karen, your parents, how are they when dealing with, when you said when you're getting bullied and anything else? Because me and Karen come from the last generation of, I'm going to say, parents who didn't know how to deal.
Yeah, they did.
That's the easiest way to put it. Their parents taught them how to hide their feelings, and they didn't know how to do, like, I love my mother to death, but I was obviously in high school and stuff. I obviously had my ADHD back then. I had some huge mental issues back then, but I was always just deemed to be lazy or dumb or unmotivated and blah, blah, blah. And
pull your boots up.
Didn't really have, being raised by a working single mom also didn't really help. Again, like, it's fine, but she had her own shit going on and couldn't deal with my shit at the same time because for reasons. Has it gotten, from your experience and from just your parents alone, has it gotten better?
Yeah, for sure. Like I've always had a very close relationship with my parents, so I'm very thankful for that. But when this was happening, like my parents definitely knew, like I was able to talk to them about everything, and they did a lot to help. Like when I told them I wanted to play guitar, they knew that stuff was going on and that this might be a way that would help. So they helped, like they paid for part of my first guitar. They also enrolled me in lessons right away. Even like before that kind of happened, you know, like when I told them, they did try to get involved with the school and try to resolve the issues multiple times. Unfortunately, the teachers did not know how to deal with it, and the teachers kind of made things a lot worse. But my parents have always been very supportive. Like I've never felt like I couldn't talk to them about this type of thing. So yeah, my experience, it definitely has gotten better.
Good. Well, that's good.
I'm glad. Yeah, having support is such a key thing whenever anybody is going through this kind of stuff. Whether it be, I mean, parents are great if they can be there, but not everybody's parents are. Sorry, that was whatever. Not everyone's parents can be or are. And you know, find the support system where you can. But it's wonderful that your parents were able to do that, and to also like help encourage you to go in a direction that would give you that creative outlet. That's really fantastic. That finding those kinds of things. Yeah, I wish I'd had something like that. I think I did, but I did not. That wasn't part of my youth. Instead, it was a lot of bad behavior. I spent as much time out of school as I possibly could. That's what I did. Instead of like going to school, I did not. Which is why it took like a long time to get through high school. What would you have wished your teacher? Do you have, like, if your teachers could have done, what would you have wanted your teachers to do you think?
Well, yeah, for reference, what they basically did is they pulled the kid out like kind of in front of most of the class and said what was going on.
Okay.
I wish that they had more so done it in a way that first of all, one-on-one with the student, not in front of the entire class, because then everyone's gonna like, that's in front of everybody. That's not a fun thing to sit there and experience. Also, another thing is to maybe make it seem like, even if this wasn't the case for the teacher, but like to make it seem like they kind of saw the bullying happening and that's why they're saying it, rather than, oh yeah, by the way, somebody told me that this happened, because then that's going to make it a whole lot worse. So that's really what I wish they had done a bit more.
Yeah, as Allison just wrote, I don't know if anyway, I can't remember if we were saying names or not, but she just wrote in and said that it's a huge problem when teachers don't know or can't see what's going on and don't know how to resolve the issue either. And that is a big part of this, is that it's having, and this is what we're getting at. This is mental health awareness. This is making everybody aware of how to deal and everything. And there's too many people out there that don't know how to deal with somebody when they're having any mental health issues, which is just important and just as great an issue as having the issues themselves.
Yeah. There's this really neat program that one of my colleagues is now involved in it's at the University of York. So I don't know if there's something similar here in Canada, but we could use something like this if there isn't. And it's basically a mental health first aider. So it's basically someone who is trained to recognize the signs of of deteriorating mental health, and kind of not intervene in the sense of that, because they're not doctors, but it's just someone who has been trained with response. So if there is somebody who is having a breakdown, if somebody is, whether it's I guess like a more externalized thing or something where you can tell that somebody is obviously upset, that they are given the training in order to know how to approach somebody who's in these situations. And I think that teachers would really benefit from this kind of stuff, because like, I understand somebody not knowing what to do. I mean, if it's in a confrontation, I get that. Like, I don't even as an adult really know how to deal with those kinds of things. If somebody came at me or was coming at somebody, I would want to put myself in between it, because having been a victim, I don't want to let somebody else be a victim. But you want to do it, and you want to try and deflate the situation as well as best as you can. And I don't know if I would know how to do that exactly. So it would be nice to see those kinds of things moving into the school environment as well. And if there are such programs, please tell me about them. I want to know. But it's been something that we've talked about even for my research institute, that our supervisors should be trained on this kind of thing, because students in graduate work as well are very likely to suffer from depression and anxiety, and more so than it's a significant percentage more than the average population, whatever that is. And it would be beneficial if they could spot it and know how to deal with it. But without training, they can't. I wouldn't expect an average person to know how to do that kind of stuff. I mean, we have been through these things, and I still can't say that I would know. So yeah.
That's something I agree completely. There was one time actually at my school where somebody in my class who had anxiety was having like an anxiety attack, and the teacher basically just said, "Oh yeah, you can just go walk outside the classroom and just like come back in a couple of minutes." But I think like having like teachers like knowing what to do properly during that situation would help a lot, and make students feel a lot more comfortable if they're going through something like that. Having that reassurance is definitely really important.
Yeah, it's all of this kind of stuff that helps to make it seem less weird. When there is training for these things, and so therefore if something occurs, somebody just goes, okay, this is how we deal with that situation. And instead of making it all like, oh God, now what do we do? It helps to make it to reduce the stigma of such a thing. Like, I mean, before, when people acted unusually, people were and you didn't want to go anywhere near them and all of this kind of stuff. But really, that's usually what people need, is people to come. Even when they're at their spikiest, they really need somebody to offer support, as opposed to running away.
Yeah, because I mean, the running away and the shunning the person, or the just being weird around the person, is only going to magnify what they already feel bad about themselves for. Mm-hmm. And that's what keeps people from expressing themselves. Yeah. And one of the most, as I'm going to repeat this, one of the most important things about mental health is the awareness of it, and the being able to express yourself, and the being able to have an outlet and shit like that. Because I know at least, I don't know Rohan very well, but I know at least two people on this panel right now spent years upon years hiding the fact that they were dealing with shit from everybody else, because they didn't know how people were going to react to it. Mm-hmm. And the unknown is one of the worst feelings. Yeah. So we should have a couple more guests coming on. Basically, I got to reiterate this because this is what we're here for. Mm-hmm. Of course, tomorrow is the first day of Canadian Mental Health Awareness Week, and we are here raising funds for it. Mm-hmm. So anybody that's listening, and anybody who's seen any of our posts and everything for the next week, if you can do your part and share and do whatever you can to get it out there. Mm-hmm. If you can't donate, then you can find other ways of helping us out. As I said, share it, let other people know. Just just expand the circle of it, and we'll see what we can do. I mean, we've already gotten, and I'd like to thank everybody who's already donated. There's been a ton of people. We're halfway to our donation goal, which means I'm halfway to having to grow out my hair and my beard for the next 6 months. So yeah, that'll be fucking fat. In 6 months, I'm going to look like Rohan.
Although his locks are so luxurious. I don't know
they're silky smooth and wonderful. But and let's not forget this is that the reason I'm growing out my hair is because in a couple of months we're going to be doing the hair donation for Chio thing. So guess what my co-host is going to be doing?
I'm going to cut off the the crazy lengths of hair. But yes, so I will be doing the same. Apparently, according to one of my friends, 8 weeks. 8. So 8? That would be great. Anyway.
You can before we get into that, I'm going to add somebody else to the stream.
Sure, of course.
And we have our friend Mulligans.
Just before we obviously want to hear from Jennifer and her experience, and thank you, Rohan, for sharing yours. One of our commenters here was sort of just saying about how often when you are a victim of bullying and abuse and mental health, you feel like you are the only one that's going through this in your immediate circle, and I logically know that this isn't true, of course. I know this. And I mean, I know this, in fact, because my co-host goes through these things. So I know that isn't the truth. And I know that there are other people in that I care about that are also going through this. But still, it's part of the fuckery of this stuff that it isolates you. And you don't, especially when you know other people are going through things, you don't want to add to it. You're like, but they're already going through all their own shit. Why would I put my shit on top of their shit?
It's also the putting your shit on top of their shit. Yeah. But for me, it was the hope that other people weren't going through the same shit, because knowing how shit I felt, that I didn't want anybody else to feel the same way. So I was hoping that I was singular in my problems. So I didn't want to put it on other people, because if in my mind, 99% of the rest of the population were happier than fuck, I wanted to leave them like that. Mm-hmm. And then you realize that 99% of the population is just as fucked as you are. And it's only 1% of people that are actually out there genuinely happy in their existence. Before we move on, I would like to thank Rohan for coming on. Rohan, you didn't have to leave.
No.
But thank you for coming on and sharing. If you want to get back on later, feel free. I mean, the more people in the conversation, I think we can fit 10 people on this little screen and we can all shoot the shit. We have Andrew. We have Parm coming on as well. So we got a little thing going here in a second.
Yeah, but let's hear from Jennifer. Thank you for coming on, Jennifer. It's also nice to have another lady on. But for yourself, do you wish to describe some of the experiences that you've had?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about one in particular. I mean, I grew up. I've been listening to you guys since just after 7, and I think there's a lot of stuff. I don't know, there's something strange, and I'm going to speak specifically about the area I grew up, but it's like drinking is like a sport up there, and I think that my dad drank, all my uncles drank, I had an uncle die of cirrhosis of the liver. It's an awful thing. And so it's really strange that other than, when I was younger, but none of my siblings or I really drink. We do, but not to that. And we, I feel like that's part of the culture, and that's part of that mask and that disguise. You're feeling something, so you do this thing to sort of feel something else, right? Mm-hmm. And so, so I didn't, I was going out partying and stuff when I was in my 20s and my teens and 20s, but it all kind of came and hit me in my mid 30s, and then I was off work for 7 months, right? So it's you kind of do these things and then nothing kind of makes you happy. So then it's like, what the hell's happening? Like, what the shit, like I'm supposed to be happy. I'm supposed, I got a great job I love. I'm, doing, and it's just nothing is sort of hitting the mark. Right. So when I found screenwriting and when I found doing film stuff, that's when I really felt like I had found my people and I'd found the stuff that I was supposed to do. And then I was like, well, now I'm not in the right position. Like, fuck, what am I doing? So that's why I sort of like blew everything up. And in my mid to late 30s, and sort of said, like, fuck it, I'm gonna go like, try something else. And like, I feel like that's a commonality, with people who have sort of like dampened down their psychology and their wants for so long, right? You kind of try to blow everything up and reinvent yourself. Yeah. And part of it is the fact that it's like, I grew up with two, like a blue collar dad and a housewife mom. And, after my dad died, my mom was still pretty young. She was only in her 50s. Like, and so part of it, and because they were like 12 years apart, right? So part of it is the fact that like she had an entire life after my dad died. And it was like, seeing her sort of reinvent herself as well. And so I feel like that's sort of like the mode that like the modus operandi is that you kind of deal with things for so long, you blow everything up and then you reinvent yourself. Like, and part of it is, I think that's really common. I think that's like a more common experience than people tend to realize. Yeah. And I feel like that 7 months I took off work allowed me the time to step back and to say, like, what do I want? How do I approach the world? How do I approach living? And yeah, it was pretty horrible. There were days I didn't get out of bed and it sucked. And, so I leaned on a therapist. I felt that was my mode to go. And she was great. She was local. She understood. She dealt with artists. She understood that psychology. And I was in the wrong fit at the time for my work, right? I was in a very male-dominated technical job, not a lot of creativity, not a lot of like, outlets for me. I was doing a lot of artistic stuff on the side, but then I had like 2 full-time jobs, and that burns you out faster than pretty much anything. So, and you get to a point where you're just tired. And I think you said it, like, Karen, I said, you're just tired of being busy. You're just tired of doing stuff, and like, that's where I was in my mid 30s, exhausted, crying at work, driving into work in the morning, going like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I don't understand. So like, part of it is just like, I had to step back and I had to sort of make those changes for myself. And yeah, it's tough because you grew up with parents who are sort of like depression. Like my dad and my mom grew up during the Depression. Well, my dad grew up during the Depression, but my mom grew up during World War II. There was food rations. There was like, just lived a different existence. I grew up with Saturday morning cartoons and, rock music. And so I feel like they weren't the people I could lean on. And certainly like losing my dad when I was 21, it's certainly none of that helped, like losing him at an early age. And so, my mom had her own stuff she's going through, and it's that burden. It's that sort of like that question of burden. And I feel like that's also very much like a stoic Ottawa Valley upper stiff upper lip, you get through the hard times. It's just like, fuck, I'm tired.
I think a lot of that comes from like the Brit thing too, right? Like that's such a very English way of doing things, and it's not fucking healthy. It's really not. We wanted to say welcome to Andrew, who has also joined us on the stream. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me. That's awesome.
Yeah, as I grew older and you started like listening to what other generations have gone through and understand that there is this like intergenerational trauma kind of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I see how that happens now. Like I see what the impact of the war on my grandfather, which then had an impact on how he raised my mother, which then had an impact on how I got raised. And it's like, it's just like this like fucking dominant.
And then how you raised me.
I'm raising you, am I? Oh dear God.
Well, you didn't take very good care of me for those couple of years.
I didn't. I didn't even try. Really.
No. I didn't make it easy. But yeah.
But yeah, it's a different. I think that. I think this whole, the keep up and carry on kind of stuff. I think that needs to go. Like I think you do need to keep trying, like, I think that's an important message, but not the just like pretend everything is fine. No, don't fucking do that shit. It's like, share.
I mean, like that kind of stuff is like helpful in the short term when you're dealing with a high stress scenario, that you can't allow that stuff in, or else people either suffer, or, it depends on what you're doing, right? If you're a surgeon, you can't just be like, oh, I have anxiety, like open heart surgery, but like to learn how to productively deal with that is so key. Cause like, going back to the surgeon analogy, open heart surgery, okay, you let those feelings in for a few seconds, you execute, you do what you need to do, you shove it down. And then when it's all, when you're better, you have to deal with that. You can't just leave that down there. And especially in like the music industry and stuff like that, when you get those like types of things before going on stage, or something happens at a show, or, whatever it is, sometimes like you just like something happens, you shove it down because you need to deal with the situation, but then that never gets dealt with, that bottom piece. And then it happens again, and then you're shoving more down there, and it just starts to get, you start to get really good at it. And that's the scary part. You start to be good at shoving it down, and then you start to, you may be like, oh, well, I'm not stressed. It must be happy then, but really you're just learning to numb everything out. And that's a totally different battle you have to fight now. So,
yeah. Yeah. And it's like my experience with doing that kind of stuff is that it just turns into this like toxic cesspool that's down there. And then like eventually something like punctures, and then it's everywhere. Like you blow up your life in really gross ways, kind of thing.
For sure. Like, I mean, I recently went through a really rough burnout, and, like within the last 6 months. And, but when you're, when you go through a burnout, it's not just the burnout. There's all that garbage that comes up with it. So, I've been struggling with, I had an opiate addiction, from, just in sometime in high school. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when it started to get out of hand, but, it was high school. And, as things started to get, normal, and I started being able to function with it, that's when it became a huge problem. And, it was like I used it to kind of just like as a survival technique, kind of like I learned how to just shove it down, like I was saying earlier. And then when later down the road I started to realize, I was like, I don't feel anything anymore. I don't feel sad. I don't feel happy. I have no emotion. Like, and it took a while. Like I remember just looking at the bathroom mirror at work, and I just looked at myself, and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, who am I? Like, what, like, it was one of those like movie moments where I was like, I need to deal with this like today. Like I need to get the wheels moving today to deal with this. And, I had been clean for 4 years, but it was just one of those things where, like the early onset of the addiction made it that much harder for me to, deal with any type of emotion. I just learned how to shove it down. And then when I started seeing a psychologist, luckily I had the resources to see a psychologist, which a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And
we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Like it saved my life. Without it, I have no idea where I'd be. I hit rock bottom probably 3 months ago, and I was like at the edge of my rope. And my bandmates were confused. They didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. My parents had to step in and be like, okay, like, what do we need? What's our next action? Do we need to go to rehab? Like what needs to be fixed here? Anyway, after seeing a psychologist, it just absolutely blew everything wide open, allowed me to reevaluate and learned how to feel emotion again. Wow. And that is super scary. Like for anyone out there that like has learned to shove it down and to suppress that. And at this point it's second nature. Like you don't even think about it. You just don't feel anything anymore. You're doing huge damage to yourself. And when I started feeling stuff again, all the good and all the bad, and there is so much bad, but you have to trudge through it in order to get to the good. And, luckily, I was taught how to feel the bad stuff, but also do it productively. And to realize that those negative emotions, this anxiety and all that stuff is all there as survival techniques. And it's all positive. Every negative emotion is actually positive if you learn how to interpret it. Okay. When you're feeling angry, it's probably because, you had something that, rubbed you the wrong way or whatever it was, but you got to remember to look internally and think about why you're angry, it's tough when you're dealing with shoving emotion down because you never know how it's going to come up. You never know what the source of it is. You never know if, you're going to snap one day at somebody or something like that. Yeah. But again, it's all stuff that like you have to train yourself to get through. And, without, giving yourself a little bit of a break, then you're never going to get there. And the burnouts just make everything 10 times worse because your brain is constantly in production mode, Well,
that's another thing that needs to be brought up is that no matter how much you have on your plate, no matter how things around you are going, as Andrew just said, taking that time and just taking a break and slowing shit down and taking time for yourself is greatly important.
It's processing.
we all have shit going on. We all feel the burden of, as the four of us have discussed, whether it's work or whether it's life in general or everything just kind of piling on. Take a moment, deal with your own shit first, and then kind of center yourself back, and then you'd be better prepared to go back about what you have to do.
Yeah, you have to allow yourself to process. If you don't process, you're gonna end up like what happened to me, and like it happens to so many people. I find that a lot of people in that are like in their 50s generally have this problem. They've learned to just shove it all down, and they're totally fine with it. I'm not going to generalize and say every 50-year-old is like that, but it's pretty common in that generation. And I actually brought something up with my dad one time. I was at the cottage, and I was like, yeah, so I started seeing a psychologist, and get ready, because I'm going to lay down some knowledge bombs. And you let the old parent know exactly how badly they screwed you up. I basically, he was a great father and everything. It was just, he was obsessed with productivity. He was obsessed with assigning his self-worth to tasks completed was the big thing. If you didn't complete tasks, or then you would assign your self-worth to it. So if you couldn't get something done, you would feel terrible about yourself, right? Exactly. And that was a nuclear bomb that went off in his head. He looks at me and he goes, am I like that? And he looks over at my stepmom. He goes, yeah, am I like that? And then she kind of just goes, yeah. And the whole family started to realize like we're all like that. Like that's something that was passed from the grandparents down like a tree. And it was a big realization for the whole family. And it's not something that you can just turn off. You start to, like, if you can't fix the barbecue or whatever, like it seems like a small thing, but you feel like shit if you don't fix it. And if you can't fix it, and then people are kind of look to you to fix things now because you're always trying to fix stuff, and it just perpetuates. So you have to remember that it's important to recognize those negative thought patterns, and a professional can literally spell them out for you.
Yeah, I often say that in my 40s, I started having these like mini epiphanies all the time. It'd be like something would happen and it would trigger some kind of reaction in me, and then I'd be like, oh fuck, that's why I do that. Like, it was, I started being able to see the connections, but I really wish that I had a better understanding of those connections as a younger person, because I think it would have prevented an awful lot of bullshit. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. Like it's just the fact that you guys are doing this is so great, because it's like, I was lucky enough to have the resource to be able to fix this, It changed my life. It did. It literally it went from being bummed out to not knowing what the hell was going on in my own head to having a 95% grasp of my thought patterns. And,
wow.
the fact that you guys are doing this is just amazing, because we need to get that resource out to more people.
Yeah. And one of our commenters was just saying, you know, like that she wished that jobs would allow for mental health days and things like that. And I fully agree with that kind of stuff. We need to have more of a recognition in the system as a whole for the necessities of these things, because there's, you know, it is such a common occurrence in so many people, and yet it isn't treated like that. Like it's, you know, I mean, we can't even get a lot of people can't even get fucking sick days for like actually being sick. So, excuse me, mental health is actually also being sick, but I mean, in the sense of a cold. But,
yeah. I mean, for some people, it doesn't make sense. Like, why is the brain not looked at like any other organ?
It's a fucking organ.
And it's the one organ we don't fully understand. So it's like, it just seems absolutely bonkers to me that we're way behind on all this stuff. The paid sick day thing, like, don't even get me started, but it's just like the fact that it's not revered as a actual, like, you have, you know, if you have cancer or something, I feel like that in some capacity is just as valid as if you have if you're having suicidal thoughts. You're just as sick. Like, and you know, it may not be chemotherapy that fixes that problem, but that problem can be solved some other way. But it also it does need medical professionals. You know,
we're bringing in somebody else.
Hello, Chris.
Hey,
joining us.
I was just there, like, stalking you guys on Facebook. I was like, oh man, this is so crispy. I want in on this.
Now, I want to go back to one of the first things that Andrew said. And that was when he mentioned feeling nothing at all, because that is the worst feeling.
Yeah.
I have felt happy. I felt sad. I felt angry. I felt depressed. I felt everything else. Those I somewhat know how to deal with. For years, when I felt literally nothing at all, those were the worst years of my life. And none of you will be able to see them, but I have many, many scars on my arms and other parts of my body because I used to be a cutter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my way of feeling anything at the time. If I couldn't feel an emotion, then I'd feel a sensation.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pain at the time. So I don't know. This just came up because, again, this is with the awareness of allowing yourself to feel and feeling okay, even if it's a bad sensation, even if it's a bad feeling, even if it's anger, even if it's sadness, even if it's depression, feel it. And like
express it too.
Yeah.
You know, most importantly, express it.
It's complicated because everyone finds their own way down to that level. Like, if you're in that position where you don't feel anything, it could be so many different ways that you came to that. For me, it was opiate addiction. It was literally turning off those emotions with a pill got me down that path. But for other people, it's okay, I can't cope with this trauma, or I can't cope with whatever just happened, or whatever it is, or years of perpetuating trauma, or whatever it is. It's a survival technique. It helps you survive in the moment. That's why people get to that point, because it helps them survive. But when it no longer helps them survive, and it's ruining everything else in their life, because they no longer need to have that defense mechanism, then it's absolute ruin that goes on in your head. You have nothing there. There's nothing happening. And you know,
it's very true.
But expressing it has always been, like, you know, traditionally has been the tough part. And they, you know, I have like some amazing people in my life, and I could tell them just about anything, and yet I still don't want to. And I just don't want to put it on them most of the time. Or it happens at really inconvenient times when it's just like 3:00 in the fucking morning and I'm having a breakdown, and it's like, I don't want to call somebody at 3:00 in the morning because they have to go to work the next day. You know, but I feel, but that's why we have crisis lines and psychologists and things like that. And I want more people to get that kind of, to be able to get that kind of care. That's
and I don't think it's like valid for like, a friend can like help
at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Sort through your thoughts. They can't give you advice.
No, they're not supposed to be there to give you the tools in order for you to help move forward with what's going on. That isn't their job.
No, but I think as somebody who's a recipient, as somebody who hears like some type of turmoil in somebody's life, it's important that they recognize that they can't fix it, but they can certainly help them get through that moment and help them get on the other side of that and help them be a little bit more self-aware with how they're feeling. That is a big deal. And I think like that can help push you to get that professional help, right? And luckily my mom is like basically an addiction specialist. Wow. So when I hit rock bottom, she kind of was like, okay, these I can't give you advice. These are the facts. This is kind of your next step that you need to take is probably a good idea. Now let's just get through today kind of thing. And that it literally saved my life. Like I can't stress that enough. And like having those types of people in your life can make or break your ability to seek help or not.
But it's also those people need to be really tough stuff too, because like I've been through burnout myself, and like it wasn't the first time that I was told like you should seek help. It was like the 15th or 20th time where I was really like when I had a breakdown in the middle of my kitchen, and for no apparent reason, that it was just like, I think you've gone too far. Like you've stretched the elastic just too far. It's too much. And it was like, maybe you're right, But the first time that I heard like maybe you're having a burnout, I didn't want to hear it, because it was just like you were talking about before, like the infamous to-do list or the checklist. And if you don't finish something, you beat yourself up. And the thing with that checklist is that when you're like compulsive and like impulsive on those kind of things, that checklist never finishes.
It never does.
Never. You can do 12 things in your day. And it's never enough because you're like, oh, well, or the next day has to be just as much. And you can keep the steam going. But one day you won't be able to, and you'll just start beating your ass for the things that you weren't able to accomplish that day when you've accomplished so many feats, earlier in the week and it's good that you had an environment like your mom, like that you said that was like, addiction specialist, like she's your mom, right? She's always going to be there for you. Mm-hmm. And like, for me, it was actually my ex-girlfriend was just like, look, like, I can only tell you so many times, but like, I'll tell you again, like, maybe you should seek out help. And that was for me, the burnout was kind of like a sort of weird blessing in disguise because it cleared the way for the rest of my years after that to be like, to recognize the symptoms, like you were saying before, you're given the tools when you do therapy and stuff to be like, okay, I acknowledge this, I acknowledge that, and how do I deal with it from there? Yeah. But up until that moment, it was like a brick wall, And
it's when you do stuff like that, when you have especially burnout, it's always to the people that work really hard, right?
Yeah.
You kind of lose yourself a little bit, like you lose your personality a little bit in it because the work is just so like you
become the work.
You're trying to be the best, right? You're trying to be the best. That's the burnout thing, is to just be amazing at what you're doing. And like a lot of the time, at least it was for me. And I wanted to be the best rock mixer in the world. Like I started comparing myself to all these like top rock mixers in the world. And I was like 90% there, but I was just trying to get that last 10% and I just couldn't get there. And I was getting so frustrated. Like, why can't I get there? And, my psychologist said, okay, look, you need to kind of redefine who you are. You need to, like, you've beaten yourself up so hard. You've beaten your own brain to a pulp. You got to figure out, like your actual personality traits. You're more than just this mix engineer. You can do more than that. Yeah. And, it was a cool technique, actually. She taught me that, she sent me a list of words, just like, adjectives, okay. Just different words that help describe different people. And she's like, pick 2 of those and then start doing things in your life that help back up your choices. So if you look at yourself as somebody who's compassionate, start doing more compassionate things in your life. Pick those 2 words and start reinforcing those personality traits that you want to be.
Okay.
And it was a big deal. Like I was able to, I can't remember which words I picked at this point because I've pretty much rebuilt myself from the ground up. But yeah, some of the things that I was able to do because of that were game changing. And it helped me redefine who I was beyond the to-do list, you know? And like that was another life changer. And it's crazy that, like, you know, it's so simple. It seems so simple, but when somebody spells it out for you and knows you for kind of your struggle, they can really, like, you know, put a dent in making you better. And like, again, this whole thing is amazing because it allows people to get access to those resources.
So I want to go back on 2 points if I can.
Yeah.
One is first Andrew saying, actually Andrew and Chris both jumping on the friends and the people that you have in your life, fearing that they have to solve all of your problems when you open up to them. And that's not what people that are dealing with shit need. Mm-hmm. We don't want you to solve us. We just want you to listen. Yeah. We want you to be there in the moment. So this is for all the people who may not be having any mental health issues themselves, but have friends or family members or people that they know that are dealing with shit, is just be there in the simplest of ways. If it's just listening, if it's just having a drink with somebody, not saying a word. Like, I can go out with my friends. We can sit there in silence for an hour, watching the game on the TV, having a drink, and I can go home having said 5 things the entire night. But I went out and I hung out with people that I like and people that I know, mm-hmm. and I felt good and I felt safe. I felt comfortable, and that's all I needed. Yeah. So don't think you have to solve everything. Yeah. We're not asking for that. We're just asking for 5 minutes, 10 minutes of your time just to make us almost feel normal. Like we have somebody that doesn't mind being around us when we're at our worst or even our best or anywhere in between.
Those people can work as distractions too. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Like, and I was actually, it was surprising to me that my psychologist said that distractions are good. I started getting into the NHL, and I was really I'm stoked about the Leafs this year. I'm so
let's not talk about your NHL. I've followed your Instagram stories.
But I've watched every single game this year. I've missed maybe 2 because I was like teaching or something, but I've watched every single game. It allows me to put everything on hold for those 3 hours and shut it all off and go enjoy something that I love. And she said, never stop doing that because it helps you continue to define who you are. You're an NHL fan. You like hockey. Watch hockey. Mm-hmm. Don't sacrifice it for this other thing that you're not going to progress any further by spending those 3 hours doing that thing.
Yeah. Right. It also gives your brain a break. Like it gives it a little rest. It can, recharge your thoughts, recharge your batteries.
Yeah.
And the other thing was when you talked about wanting to be the best mixer,
just an audio engineer. Yeah.
Audio engineer. When I first got into my writing, whether it be a novel, a script, or whatever, I used to get mad at myself because if I wrote something, it needed to be perfect the first time I wrote it.
Yeah.
Because I needed to be the best writer. I needed to be the best entertainer. That's very unrealistic. And because we have Jennifer Mulligans on here, and because we have 2 musicians and songwriters and all around fantastic people, everything in life needs to be edited in some way. So
and you also have to start somewhere,
right? So don't think you're going to be perfect right out of the gate. Like, take steps, reevaluate.
Don't strive for perfectionism. Like, don't. Strive to create good art if you're in the art field. The philosophy of art is very complicated because there's like a standard, and then there's like subjective interpretation of art. It's a complicated subject, and it's hard to compete at a world-class level on that front. But my brother was like talking about how Vincent van Gogh, he painted Starry Night, and everyone thought it was the worst thing ever until 200 years later.
Yeah.
And then he was the best painter that ever lived.
Yeah, he sold one painting when he was alive. What?
God, that's depressing.
Yeah. And yet now,
it's true. And I just started listening to another podcast recently about this.
What?
I know.
Traitor!
I know. I'm a horrible person. Called this. Oh.
No, sorry. I'm going to bring somebody else on.
Okay, sure.
And then we can get into your story. I just didn't want to bring them on
that's fine.
way through. So welcome, JS.
Yo.
What's up, JS?
How's it going, guys?
We have a very robot-y sounded JS.
We have a robot amongst us.
It's your buffer size or your sample rate.
Guys.
I'll send him a message.
Send him a message. Let him know what's going on there.
Yeah, I will.
Maybe this is all voluntary.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to remove him from the stream for a second.
Yeah.
And we'll get you back on as soon as we figure this out.
I'm saying Chance is a robot.
It is a robot. Okay. Sorry, Jen.
No, it's okay. So I started listening to another podcast about the screenwriter's life by two women out of LA, Meg and Lorian. And, they're pros. They've worked at all levels, all the studios, it seems like. I'm on episode 6 or 7, and they keep reinforcing it. So, nothing is perfect. Like, we write how we write, and then, we get notes. Like, everybody gets notes. And, part of it is, I think, that perfection. And I remember doing a project years ago, and I made an error in something. This is a book project I was working on, not for me, but for a publishing outfit. And, working with artists is tough because they're so exacting. And part of it is working within sort of a parameter of error. And there was just no wiggle room, right? So I feel like these things that I've done in my life have sort of reinforced that, there's no space for error. There's no space for error. And I think having a lot of success when you're young, I was smart, I was in school, I was doing stuff, just reinforces that too. There's just this sort of perpetuating, got to be the best, got to do the thing. And it does burn you out after a while because it doesn't really exist in the real world. And part of it is the fact that it's that's part of growing up is realizing that everybody's kind of just doing their best they can. And some people will be applauded for that. Some people will get farther with their stuff. And that's just how it goes. And I feel like that's and I think it was mentioned earlier, we're the last generation to sort of have parents who hid their feelings and stuff. And I really feel like that really applies to me in the fact that when I was actually on burnout, I remember going back to crocheting because that's what I knew when I was a kid. I did a lot of that stuff when I was a kid, and I told my mom, and she had taught me, and she was like, good for you, just make something, and she was so excited. And it was I didn't feel the pressure to sort of be perfect or to do the thing. I just picked up some yarn and a crochet hook, and I just made some shit, and I think that's part of that process in terms of finding yourself, like you were saying, just doing the thing that gets you back to being who you are and understanding that you're not a to-do list. I think that was really, really important too.
I mean, you can strive to be the best. It's just be kind to yourself while you're doing it. That's
exactly. Yeah.
That's it. You can go to be, if you want to be the best friggin' guitar player in the world, then but respect the journey, respect the process, and
and celebrate the milestones. There are milestones, and you should celebrate each and every one of them, no matter how small they are.
Yeah, agreed. That's a good point.
100%.
Reward yourself. Yeah, indeed.
Well, also strive to be your best.
Yeah.
And then move on to wanting to be the best.
That's what I kind of
You're not going to be the best until you give your best.
Yes.
Exactly.
And in order to give your best, you need to be comfortable and happy and accepting of yourself.
But not just that too, it comes with experience, right? I think one of my favorite sayings goes like this. It goes, always do your best, and once you know better, do better. And it's you can't expect to be up here when we all start down here. You got to do those echelons, but if today your best only brings you to here, great. And if tomorrow it's there, okay. And some days it might be a little lower, but you have to respect that. And a lot of like we're talking about being the best audio engineer, being the best guitarist, being the best songwriter. What's difficult, I mean, obviously for like engineering and stuff like that too, it's less subjective. But when we just go back to the realm of arts, you know, like sometimes too, the where you're measuring to is just, it's not that it's out of reach. It's just today it's out of reach, you know? And then you're like, I suck. And then you should be here, but you bring yourself all the way back down here, you know? And you're just, you're not helping yourself. You're your own worst enemy. And I think that's a big problem with a lot of artists, is that, you know, you look so much like left, right, and center and tell yourself like, oh yeah, but their song is doing this or doing, dude, just do your thing and just always make sure you're looking forward and climbing, celebrate your milestones and do your best, and your best will always get better and better. It's subject to change. That's normal. And just keep going and thriving and pushing and doing it.
And people will follow you that way too. I think if you respect yourself, I think people will follow you. And I think that's the other issue too, is if you're at the top, you have to respect the bottom too, you know? You can't be at the top and be an asshole anymore. Like there was a lot of bands back in the day that were like, we're the king, we're the shit, you know? And I think now you can't be that kind of band. You can't be at the top and disrespect people at the bottom, like, because you won't stay at the top anymore. Like you have to show respect for everybody. Like you have to be a good person in general, and it's part of the like getting at the top. You know what I mean? Like a lot of bands, like we all started at the bottom, right? So, you know, I think that's the important thing. You know,
I think we're seeing the outcropping of that too, right? Like, I know in Hollywood specifically, like we're seeing a lot of assholes got to the top.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we're seeing a lot of abuse have trickled down over decades. And I think that they're being called out now, which I think is sort of resetting the bar for maybe not just Hollywood, maybe a lot of different, you know, like we're seeing it in a lot of places.
It's happening in the science field as well. People that rose to very prominent positions and have enjoyed not excessive success, but, you know, significant success. And they have done so through bullying and other types of behaviors, and it's not being tolerated anymore.
I think it's part of the backlash too. And like, I think like you look at the science community, especially now with COVID and everything, I think the backlash that's going on right now has to do probably with, I don't know what, sorry, my I don't know where I've gone. Okay.
Sorry, you're still here.
Okay. The backlash with the science community right now, I think it has to do a lot with that, exactly, with a question of respect and a question of equity in the field itself. So you look at the science community, and I think a lot of people are backlashing and they don't trust the science community. And it has nothing to do with the science and everything. It's just a matter of how everybody that's been pushed forward is. I'm sorry. I'm not saying it properly, but I think it's like that in a lot of fields where a lot of the people that are getting the respect don't necessarily. Some of them deserve it, but like the science is there, but I think it's just that people don't trust a lot of things because a lot of shit has happened, and some of these people don't deserve necessarily the respect that they've been given.
Yes.
And I think that's what's scary. I think even in the, like, you've got the music, but I think in science too, in the medical field, is a lot of, like, even doctors. Like, I respect doctors 110%, but I think sometimes some people maybe got there by, I don't know, favors or money or whatever, and it's like that in every field. But I think, like, it's complicated. But I think the backlash that we're seeing and all these these protests that we're seeing have a lot to do with people not trusting a lot of the people that are in power.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bigger issue, is why don't we trust the people that are in power? In science, in music, in politics, and everything, why don't we trust these people? You know, I think that's the bigger question.
Well, it's changing. That's I like in science, maybe not so much, but in arts, it's changing because people like who own a studio in their basement can now do just as much as, you know, like Warner Music, you know, in a lot of ways. So it's like it's becoming more accessible. And touching back on the whole mental health thing, it's just like it's important to realize that just because there's a lot of shitty people at the top, like you can't be discouraged from it. And it's important to know that people find success by being a nice guy too.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, this is one point that I wanted to make that went back to everything is don't judge your own success or what you're doing on anybody else.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how they got to where they are.
Yeah.
So anybody who feels down upon themselves, as some of you have commented on, because they're not this person or as good as this person or whatever, you don't know their story. You don't know what they had to go through. Maybe you don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
Maybe being yourself and being where you are right now is where you're supposed to be and continue your way.
Yeah.
And we just had a message sent in from one of our friends that said that University of Ottawa has an ethics course that professors have to take on how to treat their peers and grad students.
Thank God.
Wow.
Yeah, this kind of stuff is becoming very apparent that it's necessary, because they like the process for becoming a group leader in a scientific investigation team is simply the acquisition of degrees. And let's face it, the acquisition of a degree does not make you a good leader necessarily. Okay, it doesn't work like that. You have to learn how to, like, some people are inherently kind, and then maybe they will be naturally good with people and able to take care of people, but some people aren't. They're directed and motivated to complete a project, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily able to take care of others, let alone themselves even. So it's nice to hear that those kinds of things are becoming more commonplace. I know that that's something that I was part of the mental health week at my institute, and this was something that we put forward to our administration, that we wanted to see that all of our supervisors were required to take courses in order to help be better supervisors to their students, because we need more, like, everyone needs more support as they're coming up.
Yeah, I mean, people need more compassion. Like, you know what I mean? Like, show compassion.
And, well, like you were mentioning before. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Andrew. But
no,
like you were mentioning too, when you had to have that tough talk with your dad, and then we've mentioned the generation gap. Like, as in, like, our parents are probably the last generation of that whole, you just keep your head down and you keep on going, Well, often there's that gap between, like, teachers and students, right? We're talking in the academic field, Student comes in, they're in their 20s when they're in university and something like that, and teacher's been teaching for 30, 40 years. Well, the way that they were brought up was like, you suck you suck until you're the best, and it was like, it wasn't the belt, but it was almost, it was like with the words,
belt,
you can always do better, and anything under that is crap. And so now we're really seeing that, like, that whole, like, thing that we're trying to dissolve that whole mentality, because with that generation that's kind of leaving place to a new generation, we don't want to really have that repeat itself.
No, I want kindness out there, like, more.
And you can learn from the younger generation right now. Like, it's funny because I was just talking to a friend of ours. She's a teenager, and she's like a kid, and she's like full on TikTok and stuff. And I feel like right now TikTok is like the new thing, right?
Oh, yeah,
and I don't know nothing about TikTok, but like she's 14 and she's teaching me about TikTok, and I'm like, I can learn a lot from her, and I who am I to, like, judge or whatever? And, like, I could probably learn a million things from this teenager. And like, it's the same thing. Like, I could have like 30, 40 years experience in marketing and whatever. And then this teenager comes along and she teaches me these new things. And, like, I can learn a lot from this person. Right. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's how we should approach everything. Like, you can have, like, that 30-year experience, but you can learn a lot from the younger generation, everything coming up, so you can't show disrespect to anybody. Like, everybody can teach you anything,
Exactly. It's not just a younger generation. You can learn anything from anyone, to your left, to your right, be they, like, if they're older or they're younger or whatever. Someone can always show you something if you have the right mindset to receive that information.
Being open to learn and being able to understand.
I volunteered when I was 20, or like in my early 20s. I volunteered at a seniors home for almost a year, and it was amazing. Like I had a lot of older relatives, so I did learn a lot from an older generation. But being with like older people who were just sort of like, you know, happy to be sort of like, you know, going to do their activities every week. And like, it was just so really enriching to sort of hear from them. And then also now it's like, I grew up with a niece who is 12 years younger than me, and then another niece who is 12 years younger than her. So I feel like I'm hitting almost every generation in my family to sort of like learn from. And part of it is the fact that like, each generation approaches something very, very differently. Like, you know, there's almost 4 decades between my older sister and my youngest niece. And like looking at all of us, we've all just come in at a different time. And I think that's also going like touching back on mental health. I can see how different people in my own family deal with the same situations through the generations, but coming at it from a very different place, having seen how they were raised, who their parents were, how much they were able to express when they were younger. And then sort of seeing the difference and seeing the, you know, the differences in how people are approaching their lives, which is really fascinating too.
Yeah.
And you see it real quickly too, when you just like in a workplace or something like that too, like a younger generation that comes in, like I'll see it in my workplace with the kids that are in their early 20s and stuff like that too. And you see that the priorities are completely different. And I'm not talking about like the general things, like when you're in your early 20s, you want to party all the time and stuff like that too. I mean, like their values, like they'll be like, if they work into a workplace and the boss is like, oh, you got to work weekends and this and that. It'll be like, well, I prioritize me and having a healthy life and a healthy balance. And I'll go to another job if need be. Since if you look at just our parents' generations, it's like, okay, that's what I have to do to put food on the table. You know, you see that priorities change from generation to generation, which also, you know, leads to a whole other, you know, bunch of things being different. You know, it's like, well, the way you view your life, the way you lead your life and everything like that too will, you know, make decisions different, headbutting and stuff like that too. But it also comes with conflict, you know? It's like, okay, like, you know, you talk to your parents about something and they'll be like, well, you know, when I was your age, how many times have we heard that?
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, well, yeah, but that was like in the 80s, you know, we're not there anymore.
Yeah. I get a lot of the, well, life isn't fair. And it's like, well, okay, it doesn't, you know, okay, fair. Yeah. But, you know, you don't have to make it like shit. You know?
Yeah. You don't have to actively go out of your way to make it worse.
No, and it's also that there's that constant perpetuation of, well, I went through this and I'm okay, so you'll be okay. No, you're
right.
Definitely.
If I can do it, you can do it.
Exactly.
That's not true. That is not true. That's something that should be completely scrapped anywhere. If I can do it, you can do it. That's not true. Yeah. That doesn't mean anything.
Well, the only problem is the generation that is saying, if I can do it, you can do it, is the same generation that never once took a look at themselves, their own shit, their own feelings, because that was the generation that was taught to just bottle it up and keep it inside.
Well, that's exactly what I mentioned earlier. Yeah. When I had that conversation with my dad. It was just like, he was like, did I do that? Did I spend my whole life doing that? That was one of those like nuclear
You revealed
bombs.
Something to him.
Yeah, it was like, but the thing is, that type of behavior can manifest in so many different ways that it's like you can, you know, it like any other way. So it's like, and it's hard to spot, especially as like just somebody like that's spectating. That's why it's so important that people actually seek professional trained help, because that's when you can get something spelled out for you. Not your buddy who's like, I went through this, you know, like it's nice to have people that are like, when I was going through my addiction problem, it was nice that I had a friend there that had a cocaine addiction. And he was being like, bro, I know, like he was like, and I trusted that he knew and the hardships that he went through, but he's not trying to kill my demons and I'm not trying to kill his. He's just offering.
It's comforting. Yeah.
And but our parents and stuff like that, as you know, our late 20s, 30s, whatever, however old we are, they just never had that. They never talked about it at all. They never had anyone there. And if they did, they were super lucky and they were ahead of the curve, you know? I was lucky enough to have parents that were a little bit more, my mom especially was super sensitive. And ultimately why they didn't, my parents ended up divorcing. My dad was a hard ass and my mom was sensitive, and you know, luckily I got a little bit more of my mom in me, but my dad, you know, taught me my dad taught me a lot, and you know, he's a much better communicator and much better person now that he's been able to be self-aware. And I think that it's important to recognize, no matter how old you are, it's not too late to fix that problem in your head.
Yeah.
You as long as you, again, seek out that actual professional help.
Yeah.
But it's still hard to convince people that are of that age to do that. When I told my dad, I was like, I think everyone should see a psychologist. If there was funding, I think every single person.
That was just normal stuff.
Yeah.
That you went to see a psychologist the way that you would go and see your GP. Like,
it should be included in our healthcare.
Yeah.
You know, like it should just be there. You should walk in, show your healthcare card, and that's it. You know.
Yeah, I agree.
And it is a problem too. I agree. There's still this this misconception about consulting where like I feel like it should be like just going to see your doctor. It's like my brain needs a checkup, you know, and I need, and it's as much important as a physical ailment, you know, like I have a sore wrist, whatever. But it's the same thing with your mental health, you know. It's just as important.
We do more to tune up our cars. Honest to God,
exactly,
we do more maintenance on our cars than we do on our own mental health.
Yeah.
Like I think that there's like a real like disconnect, and like going back to my situation, like I was really fortunate. I feel very lucky to have had the option of using the employee assistance program at work, and then finding a therapist and getting the time off work was like, I was at the right place at the right time, because if I was in any other job at any other time, it wouldn't have worked. Right. So, and I think stepping back and taking the time to sort of reevaluate and assess and get the help is paramount. But like Karen was saying, not everybody has that option. And like, I think that there's real serious disconnect. Like, again, it's like teeth. It's like your insides. It's like another part of your insides. It's like everything needs a checkup. And
it's worse. Like it's more important because it controls everything in your body.
Well, no,
so,
for sure.
You know what I mean? Like it deserves the most attention. Like
something like 7% of our healthcare budget goes to mental health. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like
and
needs a little more.
and now with COVID too, I think a lot more people are going to be in that situation where they're going to be needing all that help and that mental health. And we're kind of, I don't know if we're neglecting it. I think a lot of people are realizing it, but I don't know if the people at the top are realizing the damage that it's causing right now. I'm not saying that it's not necessary for the better. I'm just saying that there's a lot of damage that's being done to the mental health right now. Yeah. And that it's something that we're going to have to be looking at in the future. And that's going to be a big issue, especially with like teenagers and even like people. Because I'm looking like the economic picture right now with all the businesses closing down and everything. It's gonna cause a lot of damage, not just financially. All these people, they all have families. They all have, like you were saying, like we all have history. We all have our issues. We all got all these things that we need to deal with. Mm-hmm. And I think that right now, all this is causing damage to the mental health. Yeah. So these are all issues that we're going to have to face eventually if we want to grow as a society, you know. So it's kind of not scary, but I think it's things that we're neglecting, I think, and that
to be aware of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because I think what something I've taken away from the pandemic. So like I was saying earlier, my dad grew up during the Depression. My mom grew up during World War, like at the tail end of World War II. Like, they're basically always in survival mode. Like that's the way I kind of see it. But they have like good stories too. It's not just about like we were constantly like, you know, poor or constantly. It was just, that's just the way life was. And I think that as my parents and as I grew up, you know, from the 70s to the 80s, it felt like I was never lacking anything. Like it felt like I never really had to survive. Like my dad grew vegetables. We always had stuff. Like it was just, and so going from a generation that was basically like scraping by, for lack of a better word, or at least like not doing as well as they could have been, and then going to my generation and my sister and my brother's generation, which is 10 or 12 years older than me, I feel like there's a huge like shift in those three generations, right? So, and then now this is the first time that like in modern times that we've had to actually survive something of this portion. And I feel like
confronted for the first time.
It's going to be like bonkers. It's going to be like we're all survival mode until we all get vaccinated or until we can all see each other again. And then it's going to be like, how do I survive? Or how do I get out of this survival mode? Yeah. I even see it now with like people online. Like, this is the first time I've gone in for dinner. Like, they're in places that are well vaccinated. It's like, this is the first time I've gone in for dinner. I feel strange. I don't know how to like cope. So it's again, shift again, right? We're going to roll through this like survival into normal life again. And I think that's going to be when people are going to be very, very apprehensive and very, very difficult sort of transitioning back to sort of some sort of normalcy.
It's an interesting social experiment because it's like, obviously for lack of a better set of words, but it's an interesting thing to look at to see how the collective human psyche deals with isolation at this level for this long.
Yeah.
There's certain people that they're like, okay, I got to break a rule. Like they're like, I and it's just like the other day I had, my buddy still lives at home with his mom. Hey, Warren. And
are you talking about me? Are you?
Yeah.
Because that's true, man. Keep going.
But yeah, he came over and we hung out and we played a couple of video games and he's at home. He doesn't have I have a couple of roommates I live with, but he doesn't have friends face to face that he can talk with. And the fact that he was able to come and we just hung out and I think we just played some Mario Kart or something like that. It was a great time. But that can be the difference between somebody going off the deep end and somebody not going off the deep end. And it'll be interesting to see kind of our collective human psyche, how we reintegrate, because that's really what it is. It's a complete reintegration of our society again, which hasn't happened since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
But those things are just as important, I think, in general. Like, I feel like sometimes, like, I don't know if it's the people at the top that don't realize the importance, but I feel like that risk that having somebody over is probably more important than the risk that you'd have to catch COVID. You know what I mean? Like,
you have to have it calculated.
Yeah, there's like a balance, and I feel sometimes like it's a matter of your personal opinion. Like, you might have had that fine or whatever, but I think in that moment that fine wasn't important, or like the police intervention or whatever wasn't important, because in that moment I think that person needed it, and I think that's more important than whatever rule that they could have put in front of us.
It's something that they didn't include in they didn't include the human psyche in the conversation. And even if they still decided to do what they did, but with the consultation of people that like psychologists and things like that, I think that would have made a big impact on for people to be able to somehow cope with it. It was almost as if they just said, everybody stay at home and figure it out. There was no way for people to kind of everyone just jumped on Zoom. Like, everyone was like, okay, what's this Skype Zoom thing? Like, I guess, and but the government and anyone at the top and things like that didn't really help the society figure that out. It was
because they're of the generation that we were just talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're just thinking about the physical drawbacks. Well, if there's bodies out there, they're going to contract COVID, and then we're going to screw everything over. So like you said, they're just like, everyone stay in, problem solved.
And like, you see it everywhere. Like, you see, I think Ottawa had several issues of kids partying in the park. I said to my sister, I said, I don't blame them. I said, look at how much time I going out when I was in my teens and 20s. Like, I can see why they're taking those risks, because they want to have fun. I get it. Mm-hmm. But it's not going to get us out of it any faster, but I get it. I understand why they're doing it.
They didn't help us figure out a way to do it safely. They just said nobody's allowed to do anything. And instead of people being like, this is how virus spreads, this is how you can still see people but not deal with it. Like the driveway get-togethers, that was a great idea. You know what I mean? Like, you can still see people, but there's no risk of transmission. But they didn't educate that. And it's confusing for people. I'm touching back on the mental health.
And you just to go back to Ottawa, like the Ottawa region, like the Ottawa-Gatineau region, I include the Gatineau because we're a big region, right? So I'd say probably 80% of Gatineau works in Ottawa, right? And so they close the borders. So they close the borders, right? And probably half of the nurses and the doctors are from Gatineau. And then, so you close that border and you lock them up and you cause like this big traffic jam of like an hour where people are coming in during rush hour to get to Ottawa. But they're all working, right? Who comes to Ottawa at 7 a.m. just randomly when you're not actually working in Ottawa, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not just going to Ottawa, spending an hour in traffic jam because I want to go to Ottawa, right? So I like that whole thing of the border closing made no sense to me because they're probably going to stop maybe 1 or 3 person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how many people they're stopping, but
I agree. I totally agree. And it also goes the other way.
Oh, I agree with the other way. Exactly.
So many people use Gatineau Park as their hiking destination.
And I don't care. Go hike. Go have fun.
Exactly.
It's outdoors, man.
The problem I had is that you get the and sorry, we're going off on a tangent here just for 1 second. Indulge me. But like you get the news cycle. I think this goes back to the confusion and the mental health. You get the news cycle telling you everything's shut down both directions. Yeah. And then you get like somebody posting a picture from the National Capital Commission saying, "Oh, the trails are open." It's like, no, they're not. They're not. They're not open for all of. They're open for the provinces on either side. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth because people get upset and then they get angry and then they just say "fuck the rules." Yeah. And like that's the problem is that the mental health is on like pins and needles right now because like there's so much, and I think that's why everybody's having burnout of the rules. And part of it, like. I went over to Ottawa one day. It was right before the lockdown happened, and like, or it was like the first hours of like shutdown because I just needed
shame
to
on you.
Like, I know I just needed to go and like get something right, and it's like, come on, like I'm so low risk that it's almost ridiculous. I've literally seen 5 people in the past like year. I can count them, but like it's just so crazy that like. This is one region, and I feel like that has never been dealt with adequately through any of this stuff. It's just like put the rules in, screw
Ottawa
the people to a certain degree. Yeah. What's that? Sorry.
The Outaouais should be one region. Like
should be one region. Yeah.
It should be. I don't care if it's federally run or whatever. I don't like. It's just because even on either side, like I said, like I live on the Gatineau side. I'm from Ottawa, but I live on Gatineau, and like I just feel like either side, like I feel like they like both. They don't want to talk to each other. They want to do their thing, and like I feel like if one region puts like the cops on the end, and the other one will put the cops on the other end, and I just feel like it's some sort of battle that I don't understand, and that should have no place in what's going on right now, and it's causing a lot more issues, exactly like with people and confusion, and that's not helping the mental of anybody. Like right now, I don't even know what's going on in Ottawa or Gatineau. I just don't care. I'm just staying home. You know what I mean? So it's just like at one point, there's just like I don't give a shit. You know?
Inconsistency.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I can definitely say that
which created like mass anxiety at the beginning. Exactly. Like I don't know about you guys, but I remember being home and being like, okay, what the fuck is going on here? You know? Yeah. And like, what's going to happen? And every hour there was a news flash or something. It was like this and then that. And you know, it was retarded.
The yo-yo effect that they call, man. I feel like you're either in Quebec, even in Ontario. Quebec and Ontario is the same thing. It's just like the yo-yo effect. It's just like they're saying one thing and then the next day they're changing it, and it's just it's the inconsistency. And I feel like I've got 2 kids, and it's kind of the same thing. Like I feel with them, like schools and all that, it's kind of causing inconsistencies. And it's at one point you need like a strategy. You need like consistency. You need this kind of routine. You need a routine in life. Like you need to get like a certain flow going. And I feel that we lost that. And I think that's what's causing all this stress too, is like
part of it.
What I want to know is what Warren thinks.
Yeah.
He's been here for a while.
I've been taking notes. I'm not joking. So we'll go through a rundown. Is it working? Am I vibrating on screen?
No, you're good.
You're good.
I'm good. Okay, on my screen, I'm like vibrating. Man. So tell me if anything goes wrong.
Those redhead locks are really, really adorable, man.
Okay, thank you. Because literally, my screen, I'm just like jittering back and forth. It's disturbing. But I'm gonna go ahead here.
I've had a lot to drink, so you might be. I just can't tell.
So you guys were talking a lot about the older generation and you know their inability to share, etc. And you know, I was just thinking, you know, that obviously goes back to World War II, and before that, World War I.
Yes.
And also with the depression.
Yeah.
And I know firsthand, having dealt with, having had someone that I cared about murdered, that you can't really talk about it very often with many people in many places. It's just too dark for most conversations to handle. And honestly, I think that people at that time, everyone had lost somebody, that I just don't think they could talk about it anymore. There was just too much sadness. So I think that's where that came from. And the 70s was all about this realization that they could take drugs and they could explore in the mind, and men didn't just have to kill each other. It was like mind blowing. And so then that brings us to this idea that we were taught to not respect other jobs. We were taught not to, in Canada, we were taught not to respect factory working. We were taught to want to be a doctor. We were taught to want to be a this or a that, but look down on these jobs as not being good enough. And so what we had is we had, of course, different immigrant groups come into this country and completely take over different organizations, different types of jobs. They just completely took it over because white people were being racist or just looking down at the job to begin with.
Yeah, they were too good to be like, this is under me.
Right. That's right. And so now we're in this dilemma where there's not enough jobs for these people that they want, and et cetera, et cetera. And now people don't want to do trades. And so I think this really messed with people's heads, all this to begin with. And it brings me to my point that, because you're talking about how different people get ahead in the world and how you have to be a good person, you got to work hard, all that good stuff, start at the bottom. And I want to reiterate to people that there are psychopaths walking amongst us every day, and they don't give a damn about your feelings, and they don't give a damn about you at all. And these people are real. They exist. It's not bull crap. They're not, to me, they're not even people. They're something else. There's something else there because they do not have empathy. So these people have an unfair advantage. They have an unfair advantage in business, in everything, because they are not thinking about anyone else ever. So you got to remember, we're up against that. So, show a big heart, because people in high places, they often aren't the greatest people.
Surround yourself with people who do have empathy as best as you can.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you look at someone like Elon Musk. This guy considers himself a failure. He's not going to get to walk on Mars. That's not going to happen in his life. So he's a failure. And that's the way he sees himself.
That's debatable.
You can't. Well, you might think so, but no, the dude hates himself. The dude.
No, but the Mars thing.
That's what I was saying.
Oh yeah. Oh well, he's damn determined. He's damn determined. If he can put his brain into the neural link.
You know what I find sad in that situation is that look at everything this guy's accomplished. Okay, I wouldn't be able to accomplish 1/10 of that, 1/100th of that in so many lifetimes, and yet he thinks he's a failure. Okay. And here I am doing the best that I can do every day. And I'm not saying that every day I'm super chipper about it, but most of the time I'm like, hey, I'm damn proud of where I've come from and where I'm at now. And this guy's like, oh, I suck at life. I just did all this in my life, but just not going to get to walk on Mars before I'm like, I don't know what it, come on, bro.
If you can be proud, that's good, man. I think I kind of, not that I agree with him, but I feel like I'd say that most of the time I feel like I'm, I don't know, I'm like an imposter. I feel like I got the imposter syndrome.
We all do it. It's artist thing.
So I feel like I don't deserve. I'm not even close to where I'd like to be. But I just feel like I'm an imposter. You know what I mean? I see all these young kids with talent coming up, and they're awesome and they're super good. And I'm like, man, why are you even looking up to me? You know what I mean?
That's why you gotta be nice to them. That's why when you meet Rohan, you say that.
Yeah, man. No,
you're my friend, man.
I agree, and that's the thing. You have to be as nice.
Rohan,
as possible,
you're recording with that Parms guy.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Are you sure you're recording with that Parms guy? No, man. I know some stuff about music too, Rohan.
No, but
I love Rohan so much.
But yeah, man, I love him too because he's determined and he's got that ambition. And you can
he's better than us.
I've never met that dude.
If he's still watching, I need to get him back in.
That dude, man. I love him, man.
Hey, Rohan, if he's still watching,
he's
message
got that
me.
heart and that ambition.
I'll bring you back in.
Yeah.
There was a filmmaker like that in Ottawa too, like a few years ago. Her name was Morgana, and so she started making films when she was like 13, I think.
Jesus.
And like by the time she was 17 or 18, she blew everybody in Ottawa out of the water. Like, you know, and she went to Canterbury, and she had this artistic vision that just like was just jaw dropping. And
great
like,
school.
You know, like
it's like,
I
oh
was
my
in
God,
my
I
30s
suck.
going like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Like,
yeah, but the thing is, like, yeah, you start to feel that way, but at the same time, I had that same problem. But then I actually started a new project called Complicit, and I basically just started collaborating with artists I thought were better than me, because I was like, this is going to be fun. I mean, Warren's going to be hopping on one of my songs coming up.
When am I going to be hopping on one of your songs?
You bring that bottle of rum,
Count
and
me in.
I'll send you an audition tape.
Right now.
I can sing.
Atlanta's definitely better than us.
You guys have awesome bands and awesome project that I feel like are a million times better than my band. You know what I mean? So like, I'm pretty sure I'm probably not the only one that feels that way. But I feel like you guys, your bands are awesome and you're super good. And you know what I mean?
Wait. Yes.
He's in.
There you go. There's the guy.
Back. Okay, good. Okay, good. Rohan's back.
Now
everybody pump Rohan's tires.
We're giving you flowers, buddy.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, we were just
I want to say one thing.
I'm just meeting him. Hi, I'm Chris.
Because you were all talking about how eventually life's going to go back to normal. And because we're a small little podcast sitting here with screenwriter, musician,
hey, I played drums once.
Fucking forget about us.
I'm not a musician.
All I gotta say.
Yeah, but listen, this is what I'm saying: is that Rohan's the one you got to tell. Don't forget about me.
I know he's gonna be the one.
Because I already explained this to Rohan. I said you got in at the right age, and you can shred, and you can sing, and you can write. So now you've got time. So just kick ass. Because by the time Rohan is our age, he's gonna be so far ahead. Like I didn't try and sing till I was 23, Rohan. You son of a bugger. Like I was 6
Look,
years.
Rohan, the best piece of advice I can give you is stay how you are and don't get distracted and just keep going forward and be humble about what you're doing and you're gonna do great things.
And keep pushing
and don't give up.
Keep
He's
pushing.
a tank engine, though. You don't even have to worry about him. He can shred. Parms knows it. Parms is like, I found myself the next legendary Ottawa musician. Like,
the first guitar solo I heard him shred in the studio, I was like, I'm never going to be that good at guitar. So, I mean,
I know that feeling, and that's at one point I was like, screw it. I'll concentrate on writing songs.
Yeah,
that's why I play bass now. I'll record our shit and I'll do some rhythm and I'll write some songs, but then our guitar player just goes over it and I'm like, yeah, man, you can have it with full control. I'll never shred like you guys will shred. So
I was just gonna say, like, it happens in other areas too. Like the whole point of being around people who are better than you is so you grow as an artist, an athlete, or whatever. Like I remember going to the gym when I was like working out like more or less 4 days a week. And like I was training with Olympic level athletes. I'm never going to be an Olympic level athlete, but I was training in the same gym with people who were going to the Olympics and the Pan Ams and all kinds of stuff because I saw how they trained. I wasn't doing it because I thought I could get there. I was doing it so I would push myself to actually like, you know, do the best I could do. That's the whole point. I think that also goes to your mental health is that you see where you could get to. You may never want, you may not want that, or you may not, you know, feel as that's achievable. But I feel like if you just surround yourself with people who are better or who you perceive as better, I think that just pushes you to be better. And I think that's like part of growing up.
If you can have that perspective though, because a lot of people see that and they go, I'll never do that, and they feel shitty about themselves, right?
Yeah, it can go one of two ways, but so either way ends up in a really bad way. It's I'll never be that, and they think shitty of themselves, or they obsess about it and they just go too far and burn themselves out. You know?
Yeah, I think one of the things you have to do is accept that there, at this time, people better than you. And it's not that you're...
And that there will always be people better than you.
You're just not there yet.
Everywhere.
Hilariously, one of my friends, Aaron, decided to comment, and she wrote, "This poor boy has just been adopted into the strangest family ever."
Talk about you, Rohan.
But I'm a big fan of UFC, and I did Muay Thai and stuff for a long time. And like fighting for me is kind of important, but it's kind of the same thing where you thrive to be the best, right? So you want to be the champion. But even if you're at the top, there's always somebody that's going to eventually beat you, right? So it's kind of the same thing, I feel. So it's being humble in the position that you're given, right? So in music or whatever, it's realizing that even if you are a champion, even if you are at the top, you're not necessarily the best, right? So you have to accept that. And eventually you're going to, if not necessarily fall, but you're gonna be lowered to like a normal standard or whatever. And I think that's part of like the process, even in music or whatever. Like I'm seeing all these bands that are super highly, but even them, like I think you mentally you can't think of yourself as the best, right? You just can't.
And part of it is reaching back and helping other people, because people look up to you, and that's the thing, right? Like, to be humble enough to say, hey, do you need help? Do you want to know? Or like even providing a support system for other people to feel as though they can be, what they want to do. And I feel like that's also part of living in a community of people and a community of artists. I feel like that's really in like arts or other sort of like, disciplines of similar sort, right?
Yeah, that in my field as well. You want to, what you learn, you teach, and you want create this warm environment where people feel that when they don't know how to do a thing, that they can reach to someone to learn.
Yeah, I always felt too like young artists will reach out to like us, like our band page on Instagram, like pretty often, or young artists or just kids that want to write songs and stuff like that too, and they'll ask us for advice, and I'll give them the advice that I wish that I would have had growing up. Like we didn't have social media and stuff like that too when we were growing up in bands and stuff, and it was kind of like we just learned it all on our own and tried to make the best of what we knew. And I tell myself, when those kids come and write to me, like what would I want to hear when I was that age? And I give them like some tips and see what they make of it. And then like hopefully like who knows, maybe like I help make the next Rohan or something like that. But like
but it's important, man. I think that's we're not like I don't know, like it's complicated, but I kind of agree with you. Like I feel like when I grew up, like I didn't have these, like there was these bands that I looked up to, and I feel important now to reply to everybody and to answer to everybody, and like all the message that we get, like I feel I'm not saying like we're not popular or whatever, but I feel it important if somebody takes the time to send me a message and it's heartfelt. I feel like it's important for me to give that same kind of respect in the reply as well. So like if that person's giving me that message, it's just as important to take the time to answer this person, and
it's also the courage that it took, like, usually like if someone, they're usually younger, and it's the courage that it takes them to write to you, because what sometimes people fail to notice is that if they're writing to you, they respect you and they admire you. So, you don't want to leave that out of the equation. You don't want to be a dick. And it takes a lot of courage to talk to someone that you admire, So being humble about it.
Yeah. Musicians on the screen at one time. A friend of mine just commented in and she asked, what about someone who loves to sing but is terrified on stage? Her anxiety takes over and she feels physically like she cannot do it. So how do you deal with that?
She wants to sing.
She wants to sing. I heard her sing. She's a fantastic singer, but her anxiety won't let her perform in front of people. So how do you, as musicians,
start with one person that you trust? Start small. Start with one person that you trust, and then let them bring another. Let them bring another. Do it in steps. Don't force yourself to jump in the pool. Take a step in the pool, and don't shock yourself. Just go for it. I mean, as musicians, sometimes we play for one person in a bar anyways.
Yes, we've been there.
And sometimes our show sucks too. So sometimes like we're not up to the standard, right?
We've all played for the other bands too. I think we've all done that. Like, you know,
like you shouldn't think like, oh, I'm going to be an artist and I'm going to get that audience of 100 people even on my first gig. Like, you're lucky if you get 20, 40 people, 50 people. Like, good job. Like, those are good steps to take. So don't expect that if you're going to be a singer, even with a bombastic voice, that you're going to get that massive crowd right away. I mean, you can definitely look at them and see them as all wearing like pink polka dot underwear on their head, if that helps you. But I
just think that of everybody.
Yeah.
When I meet them,
sorry, I can't hear you over that pink underwear over your head.
I'm actually wearing pink polka dot underwear right now, but I won't stand up.
Very nice.
I think there's something that goes back to performance anxiety too, and mental health, of, you know, like sort of tying into stuff. Like I did dancing when I was a kid, and like step dancing, Ottawa Valley, fiddle, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, and like I was petrified because I didn't want to screw up. And that was like, I feel like that was like, again, going back to that perfection, being the best, doing all that stuff. Like, you just didn't want to make a mistake. And I feel like as I grew older and grew out of that sort of mental state, you know, I feel like the less I worried about what other people thought, the freer I was to actually do the things that I wanted to do. And I feel like that's like, there's a switch that goes off in your head when you just sort of stop caring and just do it for pure sensation of loving it and just being in the moment with yourself. And I feel like that's part of it.
If you can get on a stage in front of people and you sing, they're going to like it. I mean, like, especially if you're with people that you know, like, of course they're going to cheer you on. Like, and then that snowballs. That's just the way that I look at it. I got up there and sang on stage one time, not a singer. Had a great time, had some people support, and it was a good time. And like, what's the absolute worst thing that can happen if you play to some people that you know?
It's happened to me, and it's not that bad. The worst thing that can happen is,
of course, it happened to Warren.
The worst thing that can happen is like you lose your lyrics on stage. You drop some words. That's probably the worst feeling in the world.
And you sound like mumble rap, right?
Yeah, and you get off stage and you get a picture taken with a couple of girls, and then your jealous girlfriend sees you and she comes and punches you in the face.
Oh, that's a whole different problem. I don't know,
but I mean, it's all connected. But you know,
Warren's a rock star, so this is just the lives of the rock star, I guess.
No, the lives of the rocks, I guess so. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
My face still hurts.
I need to ask. I need to take like a 5-minute break. Is everybody cool with coming back and sticking around for?
I'm gonna be out after though.
Okay.
So
I gotta leave by about 10.
I appreciate the love, and I'm glad to be part of this. And this is definitely a worthwhile cause for real. It's super important to me and the whole band. So
we love you, JS.
Oh yeah. And
I
don't know where that
voice
came
come
out,
from.
But Rohan, whenever you want, man, we're down to playing a show with your band anytime.
No,
buddy.
you don't. Rohan's mine.
Thank you so much.
No.
Get Rohan.
When all this is over, man, we'll all play a freaking big show together, man. It'll be
Okay,
awesome.
you can share Rohan.
And that's all I want. I just want to play a show with all of you guys, man. You're awesome, and like I want to be like full packed crowd, and we'll just have some fun, some beers, and maybe some with Rohan, maybe like an energy drink or whatever. But
here's a Gatorade.
Yeah, Gatorade.
We're gonna spike the punch, Rohan.
We'll sneak him in a beer, and we'll be all good, you know.
Okay, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break. For whoever's here when we come back is free to be here, and thank you for everybody else. Thank you, JS. I know you got to go. Thank you for coming in and sharing all your stories. It's been fucking fantastic. Everybody else, if you're still here, then hope to see you in a couple of minutes.
I just wanted to say to JS, I really appreciate the leadership that he is, you know, talking about being to other people. I think that kind of thing is really amazing, and you will help, you know, generations behind you come up and feel better about their place in the world, and that makes a big difference. So
thank you. And I'm not trying to be a leader at all. I'm not trying to be a leader. That's far from what
leader.
I'm trying to do. No.
Red
I'm
leader.
I'm trying to be a friend and good person. Rock and roll. All right, guys. See you later, man.
Bye, Jay.
Okay. Now for everybody else, while I'm gone for a couple of minutes, let's enjoy some Civilian.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Why isn't the sound there?
I don't know. That I can't help you.
That TV
There we go.
was a shitty TV. Found on the side of the road. It's a weird video, man.
Thoughts twist in your head. You're tossing your turn as you lay on your bed. The nightmare never ends. You try to reach out for anyone's hand. It's colder now, you feel the chill. You hold your breath so time stands still, but everything stays the same. And you cry when your heart lose control. And you cry when you're losing the light begins to fade. You search for a spark like a moth to the flame. The cycles flip and change. There's no black and white, just ennui and haze. You're running now, you start to slip. You grit your teeth and clench your fists, but everything stays the same. And you cry when your heart lose control. And you cry when your heart loses it all. And in the world you pour and swallow my heart and soul. Black does it so as we go.
Woo!
That's still
That
the coolest
was,
video I've ever made.
I'm really curious about the messages and all the segments, because like I can definitely feel there was a couple of themes going on there, but the way that the whole like cut images and the themes without having to put words to it was something. So I'd like to know, like, what was your thoughts when you were putting that together?
It's actually it's the first song out of the album that goes through the 5 stages of grief. Each song represents a different stage.
Okay.
And that's denial. But it was the first single, so I wanted to touch on every single theme from every stage of grief. And it actually progresses through the stages as you watch it. Like the main thing is like the whole guy standing in front of the cross and stuff like that is like bargaining. You know how people tend to, look to a higher power when stuff isn't going their way.
Yeah.
And the whole like denial thing, like with the blindfold and how he's sitting there at the table, and like as the beers start to kind of go up, the candle starts to come down, like he's been waiting there for a long time, and then eventually he just puts the blindfold on and starts eating because he just doesn't want to think about.
Doesn't want to face it.
Yeah. So it's the whole thing is based on the 5 stages of grief. That one music video is the only one of the set of music videos that we did for that actually touches on every stage. That's still the craziest production I've ever done. It's
like I said, the imagery is really powerful. It's one of those video clips that like I think of the video clips of my band and it's like trash beside your video clip.
Oh dude, I didn't know what the hell I was doing either. Like
I would watch that video clip like a couple of times over to really, it's like a movie that when when you get to the end and like, oh shit, no way. And then you watch the movie over again. That's how I felt about that video clip. I was like, shit, I need to watch that. Because now I kind of catch the whole idea towards the end. It's like, I need to watch it again just for that.
Yeah, it's got a lot of themes in it. Definitely. Like I wanted people to feel that way when they watched it, like quick cuts so that it was like, whoa, I just missed something. I got to watch that again. Like that was cool. Right. And yeah, if you really look at it, like it really does bring across the whole denial thing on like, if you're dealing with grief and all that stuff. So it's interesting that you picked that song to play because it's really is thematic for what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. Big time.
Yeah. I think that there was
blame your band.
Hey, Cliff wrote
blame it. Your band.
That's the one they sent me. That's the one that got played. I'm not going to take fucking credit for that.
That's why I manage your band.
That's the one that got played.
That's Cliff for you.
Warren sent me fucking What's Up Boy or Wake Up Boy. Sorry, that's what got played.
Yep.
And a little later in the proceedings, another band will get a play. One of those members could be sitting here on the panel right now.
Jeez, I wonder who.
And he's very much part of the video.
He's the only guy in the video.
He's the only guy in the video.
Yeah. COVID, it was kind of like, okay, guys, we need to do a video clip. Hey, no one can see each other. Okay, cool, I got this.
So now we've all dealt with our past. All of us have talked about fucking most of us, if anybody really wants to jump in on this, they can, have talked about the previous years. How's everybody doing right now?
I guess we're keeping with the whole mental health bill here.
Well, we've wandered off path before. I'm sure we can do it again.
I have to say,
we're just here shooting the shit because it's fun.
1 year later from the whole, because we're like about 1 year and a month in, almost 2 months in from the beginning of COVID, I remember feeling tremendous anxiety. As of March, I think it was 13th last year, when everything blew open and it was kind of like, we don't know where we're heading. And I have to say 1 year later, now that I have like personally more like of a grip on things and also everything that has happened afterwards, I'd say that I feel stronger after the last year that we've went through because, Andrew, from what I gather, because I kind of hopped in like a little late in the life, but like you went through burnout, and I don't know if you had that feeling too afterwards, because I've been through burnout myself. But when you get back from that too, and you kind of look back in retrospect and be like, this is kind of like a blessing in disguise, where it makes you realize things. And with those tools in mind from when that happened to me, when the whole COVID thing blew out, and then the anxiety and what am I going to do and this and that, it made me, first of all, I panicked. And then after that, I breathed, like I took in some deep breaths and centered myself. And it's like, okay, I have to move forward from this because there's just no other option. And I didn't use the whole push it down method. It was more like, okay, how do I cope with this? This is part of me now, like this is part of our reality. And I can say with 1 year later, I think it really worked out well in the sense I was like, okay, I have to integrate this into my life. And okay, let's work with this. Let's not work against it. Let's stop thinking that things are going to come back to normal like they were, in 2019, 18, 17, 16, 15, and whatever. and let's just be like, okay, this is what's happening. Let's accept it and let's move forward and see what we can do from there. And I feel personally that it has made me stronger. And I don't want to say thick skin, because that feels like such a rebuttal that people say, like, yeah, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yeah. Yes, but not in that really like desensitized kind of way. On the contrary, I feel like it's made me more, okay, let's move on from this and let's see how we can make this work with everyday life and make it all work, especially in a band. You know, like when you get shows and stuff like that just tossed off the table, it's like, okay, I'm not about to give up on what I love doing. So what's next?
Okay. So it's almost made you more flexible kind of thing. Like you've just sort of become a little bit more adaptable even.
I think it just made me realize it, actually. I think it was always there. It's just something that kind of pushed me more like directly towards there. Be like, okay, well, dude, this is your reality. Use what you're made of. Like you have qualities, exploit them, and be more like, you know, like go out, you know, do it.
I've heard the word resilience a lot this past year. Oh, sorry, Karen, I think you might be chatting. Anyway, so I've heard this. I've heard the word resilience a lot. And I think that's like, again, part of that coming out of survival, you realize you're more resilient. Like you've done some stuff to change. And I've heard the word pivot a lot, which is, you know, for businesses and stuff. I can feel like that's like the business word for resilience, right? Mm-hmm. Like I feel like people are resilient and businesses have had to pivot or switch their mode or whatever, right? What's that?
Pivot.
Yeah, no, but I hear it a lot. And like, I feel like, I feel like coming out of it on the other side, much like yourself, is the fact that it's like, you know, things will go back to something different, but you know, we can sort of bring ourselves through that and to make it the next stage.
I think that we can feel that way now, and we can certainly like try to look at it like we're more resilient. But we have to face the fact that we're going to be dealing with what happened these last 2 years for years to come.
100%. Like generational changing event. Like this isn't something, you know,
it's better to face it now emotionally than later.
Yeah, but we are going to be facing our survival techniques, and we're going to have to learn how to phase them out as we move forward into reintegration. I know that I went through one of the worst, and I don't think it was due to COVID, but I definitely went through one of the worst 3-month period of my entire life when I was in a hiatus with my band at the time. I burnt out. I just couldn't do it anymore. And it was hell. It really was. And like now that I'm on the other side, I was able to readdress priorities and what I wanted out of, you know, moving forward with music and all that stuff. I needed to readdress what I wanted and what my goals were. And I feel like it offered a lot of people that opportunity to step back and realize that whatever they were doing before the pandemic wasn't necessarily sustainable. My girlfriend also switched jobs. She was working at a restaurant, and she was like, oh God, this is a great opportunity to get out. Now she's actually working in something that she loves to do because she needed that little shove in the other direction. And I think it was like, I think everyone at one point during this whole thing was able to readdress their priorities, and in one way or another, whether it was they worked double time and then they burnt out and then they addressed it, or whatever it was, they were able to come back and readdress their priorities. And I think like for most people, the best thing that they could possibly do was to slow a little bit down. The whole world needed to slow down and readdress. And I think that's exactly what this virus did. Obviously, there was hundreds of thousands and millions of casualties in the process. But I think that, we can all learn, and we are all resilient, but we need to be wary and recognize that we are going to be dealing with this trauma for the rest of our lives. And we need to talk to people about it, especially other people that went through it. And we need the professionals to, sort through anything that may have stuck a little harder than it should have through the pandemic. The isolation, that's terrible. And I think that like for more people, it's going to affect their social patterns moving forward into the next 10 years of their life. We need to recognize that this is something that needs to be dealt with, and it needs to be professionally assessed.
Yeah.
You know?
One of the things that the Canadian Association for Mental Health has been putting forward for the next upcoming budgets is this understanding that the long-term effects from the pandemic on mental health are going to be substantial, and that there needs to be systems put into place to help alleviate, and not alleviate because you can't just make it go away, but help to intervene in these with these challenges, because it's not, as you said, it's not going anywhere. We're going to be affected by this for our whole lives. So I'm glad to see that there are bodies that are paying attention. We just need to help with, that help ensure that the funding goes in those directions so that those things can happen, because it's not, it's going to leave scars for sure.
Yeah. I think like, how do like, I don't know, nobody's like really said anything to you guys, but like how have you guys been doing through all this? Like with all the, like, of course you guys have the podcast and stuff like that, but I know that, it couldn't have been easy, like in any doing whatever you do, like how have you guys dealt with everything?
I've had a rough go because of course my discipline is entirely collaborative, and not being able to be in the same room as the people that I feed off of intellectually and creatively as well, it makes it super challenging. I've had delays with my research because laboratories aren't even running. I have felt the social isolation because I'm living in a country far away from people, and I generally I live alone there, and then it's been a lot. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm very tired, tired at this point. I am all I want is just to be vaccinated, and everybody to be vaccinated, so that we can do something that is approaching like having a normal life. I don't know what normal is going to be, but I miss concerts, all of the things that I used to do to give me happy. I can't do now.
Yeah, you miss energy.
Yeah, so
I miss just having people in my backyard. Like as crazy as that. But
I just want to get naked and group hug everybody I know.
Just call up Ed. He'll be down.
As long as you're vaccinated, Tyler.
As soon as I'm vaccinated, everybody's coming over for a big old pants optional group hug. And that's all I give a shit about.
I come from two very large families on both sides, and invariably there would be a party every year with one of my sides of my families. They're getting smaller now that people are, passing away, but I have my family's farm now, and I so wanted to do the 100-year anniversary of the house, right, that got built, after a major catastrophe, in 1921, and I can't do that. And so, I feel like, again, I think it's going back to, it's just get back. Let's try to get back to something where we can get together again and have some laughs and not it be, I think Zoom is a wonderful solution to sort of, to sort of bridge that gap, but, or, whatever, video chat or whatever. But I feel like there is something definitely missing. I feel like I'm an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert. I'm not really sure, but I feed off of both sides of my personality. Yep. And I feel like that's the piece that's missing. I lost my job last year towards the end, right before the pandemic. I got told I was no longer required. So I had to look for a new job, and I had to do all this stuff. And I haven't even met the people I work with in real life. I know some of them from previous work, but it'd be just nice to go have lunch with them, Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's part of the corporate culture that I was working in,
Yeah. It's like we're all missing that physical element.
Yeah.
Like you said, Zoom bridges the gap, or this bridges the gap, but we're creatures that need physical,
Yeah. Yeah.
What's weird, when we did our collaboration, when Civilian did our collaboration with Adam Gonche from 3 Days Grace, he, we were going to meet in a studio, and that was going to be super cool for us. And then obviously we couldn't do that. That was one of those really real moments where I was like, oh, this fucking pandemic, you know what I mean? We're all feeling it. in one way or another. Even, you know, no matter who you are, you can be at the top. Like this guy like sells friggin' platinum records. He's literally the top. Very few people have accomplished what he's accomplished. And he's feeling it too. He hasn't been able to get with his band and stuff like that, and being able to actually talk to him and talk to him about how everything has gone during the pandemic was like quite a, you know, these people aren't any different at the top, you know what I mean? And
they feel it just the same. Yeah,
they're all the same. We're all the same, and we all need it. If you could be the biggest introvert in the world, you can't go 2 years without seeing someone.
No.
You know, I thought I was an introvert, and I definitely am. It's confirmed that. But it's like you said, there's two sides of your personality. No matter how much you split that pie, everyone has extrovert and introvert qualities, and you can't just cut out your extrovert quality. It compromises your introvert. So, you know, you try to jump on these Zoom calls and stuff like that as much as you can with people that you know, but it obviously doesn't fill that void. And
no, for sure.
Yeah, and like, you know, it's nice to see that people are still talking about it, and now that people are getting vaccinated, like stuff is getting back to normal, slower than we'd like, but it's happening. And you know, it's nice that the light is at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people. And I think that, like, if anyone is struggling with like this whole pandemic thing, and people have lost their lives to suicide because of it and stuff like that, the end is in sight, and it's so nice that it's finally there.
Yeah, hope is right there at the end of the tunnel. Like we're getting there. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to make 2 comments based on the comments that have come in. My friend Tracy would like to thank us all for sharing, as it has changed her way of understanding the struggles and everything that people go through. And I would also like to thank JS from Cynical Sons, who was just on, who has made it known that he will get naked with me any day.
Like, hey guys, I've got a farm. We can, like, it's well in the forest. We can do whatever we want there. It's fine.
Whatever we want.
Build a stage and they will come.
Maybe we can have that music party there, you know? We can get, like,
yes.
We can have like a jam fest or whatever.
Yes. I'll get the acoustic guitar, the cajon, the ukulele, everything.
Well, see,
Andrew will bring Adam.
I like that we just talked about the whole introvert extrovert thing. Because I am one of those in a way that it'll take me the most stubborn arsehole to get me out the door to go do anything. Even though I know that the moment I get out there, I am going to have the most fucking fun I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And it's weird that I can see that finish line. I can see that if I go hang out with this group of people, I am going to have the best night of my life, but I struggle to get out the door.
Well, that's part of having anxiety, right? Like,
yeah.
That's, you know, this is...
But it's weird that you can see it, and you know it, and you still can't...
You still have to kick your ass.
Yeah, to do it.
I mean, the big question is, like, what defense mechanism is that? Like, where did you pick that up? Right?
I picked that up from, I'm going to say multiple years of being not forced, but under my own cognitive behavior to entertain the masses and then not wanting to do it anymore. So feeling that if I'm getting an invitation to go out somewhere, not that they're expecting me to do it, I'm expecting myself to entertain everybody, and that is fucking tough.
Yeah.
Not every day do I walk out that door do I want to entertain everybody that I know. But in my head, that's what I'm expecting that they want.
You recognize it, though. That's like 90% of the finding where that stems from is 90% of the problem.
Yeah.
The last 10% is hard to fix, obviously. But you've identified the problem. You've identified the source of the issue. And I mean, all it takes is somebody who knows what the hell they're doing and to pull that out of you. You know,
I used to have friends who would call me up and be like, "Hey, you coming out?" And I'd be like, No, I don't feel like it today. And they'd be like, "Yeah, okay, we won't get together then." And I'm like, well, that makes no fucking sense.
It's just worse.
If all of you are going to get together and go do something, we'll fucking go do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, well,
And then
no,
you
it's
feel
just
worse.
not the same without you. And I'm like, holy fuck, I'm not your monkey.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean,
but I used to take that upon myself. So when I heard that they weren't going to get together because I wasn't going to go out, I would go out.
well, you've built the life.
Yeah. So
Right.
I go out completely against my own will or my own want because I was like, okay, I got to go out because if I don't go out, then everybody else isn't happy. So now
Right.
I have that
Burden.
of every single time I want to go out and do something, do I have to be on? And this is the thing that I get not blamed for. That's a bad word, but the thing that I notice myself is I always have to be on.
You still have those friends?
Not a lot of them because I
That's
turned
good.
myself off and they all went, we're out.
Good. You surrounded yourself with people that were at the time there and that were reinforcing what you wanted to do. And now that you no longer wanted to be that piece of yourself, they upped and left, and it's probably better that way. It's a tough Band-Aid to rip off, but I mean, that just means that they probably weren't great friends, you know?
No.
Well, it's funny that you say that too. Like the whole it was actually a really pertinent question of saying like, well, are they still your friends? You still talk to them? And it was like, well, most of them no. And I had a conversation with my girlfriend about that today too, about someone who just kind of popped up out of nowhere. And I was like, why are they talking to me? You know? And then she's like, well, is it anything bad? I'm like, it's not bad. It's, or nothing. It's just that they were there in a phase of my life. And I realized that if I wasn't partying with them, there's nothing constructive other than that. So like Tyler, like 90% of those people are gone. And it just goes to show at what point that, they were there's very little significance in our friendship, and the people that still need to be there are there, which goes back to my very first comment when I came onto here is that the tough people stay,
Yeah. Now, in the best way that I do this and add comedy to a really tough situation, has anybody noticed that Jennifer has been rubbing her pussy this entire time?
Yikes! Holy
I'm into it.
I know.
Cool.
I'm a big cat person. I love it.
That was just a little bit of deflection there, Tyler.
That's literally what I do the best.
Look at us just diagnosing.
We're fucking great.
That's Twix. That was my cat Twix. She's be in the show.
Did you say your cat's name was Twix?
Twix, yeah.
Is there two of them?
No, I named one Mars and one Twix. So
Here comes the joke.
Mars around.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you can't name a cat Twix unless there's a pair of them.
Yeah, Mars and Twix.
Well, I mean, you need to have three cats.
Because she's two colors. She's tabby, but then she's got this like orange stripe that runs through her head. So it's
then I would have named her Reese's.
Problem solved.
There you go. Name a problem and Tyler will fix it.
I think her name.
All right, I gotta go eat some food, but thanks so much for having me, guys. It's awesome.
Oh, no, it's been our pleasure.
It's nice to talk about some actually important issues. I hope that the rest of the fundraiser goes well for the next week. And
now, before you leave, we should probably mention, because we do have an audience, that they should probably all go check out your brand new cover Positions.
Ariana
Grande's Positions with Alana Sterling and Cliff Menzies.
Yeah, that's right.
And yourself.
Absolutely.
And it's fucking absolutely fucking fantastic. So go find it on YouTube, subscribe to his channel, do what you got to do. And yeah, I'm using this to promote. Fuck you all if you don't like it.
You're allowed to do that. It's okay.
We're allowed. It's our podcast. It's our live stream.
Thanks so much. I'm gonna be putting out a lot more stuff. So
I still expect to sing on one of these, by the way.
What's that?
I still expect to sing on one of these covers, by the way.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to see that audition tape.
I will send you the audition tape.
And
he might be wearing a thong though.
I used to sing in a Metallica cover band. I got it.
Wow. Okay. Or Enter Sandman it is. Okay.
Oh, okay. I got an audition with Enter Sandman wearing a Adams to Ashes thong. Was very interesting.
God.
And on that note.
Yeah, on that note.
I think that was the smoothest leave like of the chat room ever. On that note,
he got out when the time was good.
Oh man.
Oh.
Okay.
I should head out too. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Thanks for the invite, and it was fun chat. Yeah, anytime for you guys. Got all the time in the world.
Thank you. That's awesome.
You're great.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Bye, Jen.
Have a good night.
I am frozen. I don't know what's happening right now.
No, we can still hear you. You just move really quickly
Yeah.
at times.
Yeah, it's kind of like a horror flick where it's just like they do those, time lapses.
Mhm.
It's like, it's funny. I'd hear your voice, and then your screen would be frozen, and then all of a sudden, like,
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. No idea why that's happening.
I was like, is she okay? Is it like an app? Is it like something?
Okay. Now, we're probably coming to an end of this.
Yeah, I think.
As
we're-
I think
Yeah,
we've been
I'm
through-
out actually soon too.
Yeah. If anybody who is watching currently still wants to come on, let us know. If not, then we're going to wind this shit down. Before we get to the end of it, we do have one last video to play. And I'm going to play that now while we wait for other people who may want to throw in their 2 cents worth to end this. So here is one of our friends who's sitting lower right-hand corner to me, doing what he does best.
Mhm.
Nothing here.
Oh. There we go.
There's nothing here. And that's all I take away. In truth, I fear there's nothing more for me. Yeah, it's all that I think of when you're moving slow. Yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors. Ain't it always? Ain't it always? What was I supposed to do? Wait around for you? No, I can't go on thinking you'll pull through. Was I supposed to do? Was tearing my heart in two. Can't keep going on when right turns to wrong. The less I feel, and the more you take away, the more I think this was always up to me. Now it's all that I think of when you're moving slow. Moving slow. Yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors. Every day I can't wait. What was I supposed to do? Wait around for you? No, I can't go on thinking you'll pull through. What was I supposed to do? Was tearing my heart in two. Can't keep going on when right turns to wrong. No matter where this came from, no matter what you do or say, it's gone. No matter what, I'll stay strong. There's nothing I can say wrong. I can't wait. I can't wait. What was I
Wow.
And if anybody recognizes the fella in the bottom right corner from that video.
What's crazy is like I was talking about before when Andrew, like we were watching Andrew's video clip, you know, and like I wanted to put out a video clip with the guys for Back to You, and then with everything happened, like, you know, it was impossible to do. So I just set up a camera and like did it acoustic because that's what I did in the viewing party, and it was such good reception. And like I was like, okay, like I'll do it again. But it was, you know, we were talking about stage fright. I was like terrified, you know, being like just alone with my guitar in front of the camera, you know. But I'm so like, I rewatch it now with you guys, and I was just like, I'm so proud of having done that, because it was just like, I don't know, I was really able to connect even more with the song than ever before, doing it so stripped down. And yeah, anyways, thank you for sharing it.
Well, see, I was about to ask that because I don't even listen to our podcasts because I can't listen to myself because I'll tear myself apart. Mm-hmm. And I already know this. So I say what I have to say on the podcast, and then it goes out in the
one-time deal.
So how does it feel, you being a musician, hearing yourself back? Because if you're on stage, if you're recording, again, it's going out to other people. Mm. So how do you feel hearing, like sitting here as you just did and listening to your own video?
It's honestly, it's something that I've been working really hard on in the last, I would say like probably like give or take 10 years of being able to listen to the song after I've sung it, you know, because obviously it's recording, it's like immortalized, and be like, okay, that's me singing, and like I accept the tone of my voice and stuff like that. But it's hard, you know, you always have to remind yourself, no, that's how I sing, and you're not gonna change that. Like obviously you always try to get better and stuff, but like no one likes to hear the sound of their own voice, you know? And
I mean, like you, like Rohan, who's still here, and like Andrew and everybody who was just here, you're all independent bands and musicians, so you have to do everything yourself.
Right.
So when it comes to your editing and your mixing of your songs and shit, as I said, I don't listen to our podcast. When I'm editing, I listen to the 5 seconds before and after little gaps that I have to close and fill and blah blah blah. Is it hard for you when you're in post-production of a song to sit there and feel and hear your own lyrics, listen to your own lyrics, your own voice and everything, and be able to put that out there? And I'm only asking this because this is, of course, one of the biggest mental health issues is being able to deal with oneself.
Right. The acceptance of self. And right. Like I said, like I really feel like over the last couple of years, it's gotten easier, because it's kind of like being like, I'm growing my confidence. I'm becoming more accepting of who I am. This is how I sound. This is how I play. Even if that's not how I would like, I love it. You know, like I'd love to sound like Adam Gontier, the people that I look up to and stuff, you know, but I've come a long way to be like, no, this is how I sound. And this is how I used to rely on people's like thoughts, you know, when people tell me like, you know, people tell us, oh my God, your voice is so beautiful and this and that. And it only gets you by for a bit. And then you comes back to you where you're just like, oh, I don't know, you know? And yeah, it's really difficult. But I have to say, it's also something that is continuous work. You don't ever really just one day say, yeah, man, fuck, I love how I sing. You know, that never happens. And like to the person who was saying before, like, how do you get over stage fright? I don't think you ever really do. Yeah. I mean, I've been on stages hundreds of times, and I could tell you if tomorrow I had to hit the stage again, I'd still be afraid, like not afraid, but like I'd still get those like, oh my God, 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 you know, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, but I tell myself always the same thing when I hit the stage, give it 4 bars. And after that, you're good to go. And the rest will just flow, you know? I used to do this thing actually back in the day where I would be so terrified of getting on the stage. I used to wear like aviator sunglasses to like before for the first song. And then once I'd get through the first song, I'd take off the sunglasses, and people thought it was like a gimmick, like, you know, like, oh, you know, It's his cool badass attitude. No, it was because I was petrified.
It was just
and it
behind
helped
yourself.
me not see the stage. From the stage, it helped me not see the crowd so much.
Nice.
And then after that, you take it off and you're good.
I mean, that's the same with me and Karen. Like 5 minutes before every episode that we record, and we're not even doing it in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
I'm recording for people who might not listen to it for a month from now. We spend the first 10 minutes
trying to
psyching ourselves up just to hit the record button.
Right.
So now that brings me to Rohan, because Chris, you've been in this for a while. Rohan, who is still a teenager. How do you?
I have to ask you, man, how old are you?
17.
17.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't feel old at all.
Have you heard his shit? Chris?
Pardon?
Have you heard any of his
I have not. I've just been hearing, Rohan, he's amazing. He's awesome. I'm totally going to go stalk him after.
Yeah. Check out his shit. But for you, who is fairly new to this, and seeing as you basically do all of your own, you play like multiple instruments, you do all your mixing and recording. How do you deal with yourself in a way? Like, how do you feel about listening to yourself on playback while you're doing your post-production?
Yeah. So the first EP that I'm doing, for Just the Throne, at least, I'm actually not mixing that, but I am doing I'm recording that, all the vocal layers and stuff like that. So when I listen back to see if it's the take, I remember for one song that I was recently recording, I went and did over 40 vocal takes on it, because it wasn't it was the tone of voice. It was the right amount of energy. It's everything. I find I criticize myself a lot when I listen to my tracks, listening back to it. And at a certain point, I don't think I'm ever 100% happy with what I hear, or even 90% happy. But at a certain point, when it's it's close enough, I kind of just say okay, that's it. This is what I'm going with. I'll improve over time, and the next song will sound better. But for this one, I'm just gonna go with this. But yeah, no, I do have a hard time listening back on myself. And one of the things, so my singing teacher, Joel, who's in Civilian, and he's also one who's been mixing my first EP. He gave me some advice to instead of listening back on every take, just record 10, 15 takes at once, then listen back on all of them, and then kind of judge.
And then kind of pick from them. Oh, that's a cool idea. It's good.
Yeah, that's helped me a lot to realize that wait, these two sound the exact same. There's not as much to really look at when I'm picking which vocal take I'm doing, for example, or which guitar solo. So stuff like that has helped a lot.
Cool.
In regards to the live show stuff that you guys were talking about, I find the same thing. I remember when Metal Mind, my band, went on Blues Fest, we were all pretty terrified backstage.
I bet.
And I remember actually one of our guitarists, actually his guitarist, a couple strings broke backstage right before it happened. So we were dealing literally 2 minutes before. So luckily we had a spare guitar and everything, so it was fine. But we were all so nervous. And then I remember we went on stage, and after that first power chord, it all just turned into adrenaline. At least for me, it just all turned into adrenaline. And then everything after that was just total blast.
Nice.
But yeah, it's always that first little bit that's just so terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, I go through the same thing when I have to give presentations, give talks, and things like that at conferences. It's that the lead up to it happening, and then just as it begins. But then once you go, you go, and usually it's just fine, But I think for many of us, we are driven to do well. Right. Tyler has said many times that he's a perfectionist, and that's certainly true. But I think it's trying to find the balance between always wanting to get better because we want to see our skills increase, and doing that in a healthy way and that is supportive.
Not getting obsessive.
As opposed to internalizing it, and making it self-criticism. And that's really challenging for a lot of fucking people.
We're our own worst enemies.
Yeah. Always.
Well, that would explain why when our live stream started at 7, I was sitting in front of my computer at 6 with the broadcast open and everything already set up, going through every single thing I thought I was going to say and thinking about whether it was
pertinent or not,
whether it was important, whether it was proper to say, blah blah blah. I literally sat here for an hour, basically reciting and going through everything that I was going to say tonight, and then I don't think I said any of it.
Well, like one thing too, I think that like Rohan was saying too, is like when you're starting out, you know, you don't know any better. Like in a way, like you don't know any better. Like when you're writing your first songs and you're releasing them, you have these expectations most of the time because of all the music you've heard that relates to you and or that's similar to yours. And then self-criticism comes in and everything like that. But you have to just keep on doing songs and putting out songs and stuff too. And like you'll get better. Like I look at the past stuff of Atoms to Ashes and I see some things that I do better now, some things that there's some things that I find that I wish I could do like I did on the first album that, you know, so it's like, okay, like you're learning and you're always trying to, and there's always like how you're feeling in the moment. Like art is, like we said it before, it's very subjective to your feelings and everything like that too. So it's hard to really, it's hard to pinpoint like how do you put like I'm better like to this or to that or whatever. Like obviously there are some metrics that you can use to measure yourself, but I think just always continuously wanting to improve healthily is key to really, and like keeping that really healthy. Like, okay, like, you know, like you're listening to your takes. It's like, okay, I really like this take, and staying objective about it instead of being like, oh, that take sucked. Like I hate when like I've worked with other artists or with my bandmates and stuff like that too, and they'll do a take and shit, that take sucked, you know? And I don't want to hear that stuff in studio. It's like, no, it's like, you're just going to do better, you know? And that's all, you know, it's just always like being like, okay, like I can do better. How can I do better? Understand how you can do better and then move on from there. Yeah. And I can like literally be transposed into every aspect of life, but I look more towards music. It's just like, you know, my vocal take, okay, I can do this better. I can do that better without, you know, obsessing over it, this or that or whatnot.
It's always, yeah, I think I know I'm guilty of doing that, where I internalize a lot of like a mistake and make it that I suck. And it's like, like I get trying to,
because that's all you see too.
Yeah. And
you don't see all the good around it. Yeah, you just see the mistake.
You just like, oh. And because it's like, yeah, bright red and in your face or something like that. And I'm trying to, that is an ongoing battle for me, where I have to sort of learn to be a little bit less hard on my fucking self.
That's a weird thing that leading up to that one mistake, you could have done 50 things right.
Yeah.
All of those disappear.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And you concentrate on the one thing that you've done wrong out of 49 other things that you did right.
Yeah. Apparently this is related to like survival mechanisms kind of thing. Like this is a way for us to, because of course, like where we come from on an evolutionary perspective, we had to avoid predators, right? So this is part of, because mistakes were far more costly, the imprint is meant to be much stronger. And because it could have literally cost us our lives at one, you know, many, many steps ago, but it's still, a lot of that stuff is still there. So this is part of why we react that way to a negative experience. It's meant to be, we want to learn very quickly from a negative experience and not have to continually go through that. Although some of us do anyway.
Well, we related
another thing altogether.
we related to what we're in nowadays. So like we look at social media and the advent of the internet. Mm-hmm. And I was explaining that the other day, is like, you know, like doing the acoustic and wanting to perform it flawlessly. The thing with that is that like, it's not so much to perform it flawlessly. I was saying because I showed it to the guys and I was just like, oh, I did a little mistake here, there, or that. Like, yeah, but whatever. I was just like, I don't feel whatever because it's going on YouTube and people can rewind and watch your mistake over and over again. A live show, no one can see your mistake over and over again. So I'm used to brushing them off live with a smile or with just keep on going stuff. Yeah. But when you do something with the advent of the internet and people can rewind it and then it can end up on social media and this and that, whatnot, it gets stressful, you know? And then there you are, stressing yourself for nothing. It hasn't even started yet. I haven't even pressed spacebar to record or anything. And I'm already driving myself into this downward spiral, you know, and I'm in my head. The opening line of our song, Like a Bullet, is about that. You know, when red lights flash, no time to stop again. It's kind of like the red light is the recording that just blinks in your face. It's like, well, here we go. you know, like no time to stop. You got to fucking do it, you know? But at the same time too, the anxiety leading up to that moment is insane.
Yeah.
And you just gotta, like, you know, we're talking about like, how do you deal with it? It's just something that you have to work on continuously every day with every release and every time you do something, and you just got to trust yourself a little more and a little more. And you got to find ways to do that healthy. Like I said, there was a time in my life I would rely too much on the fans. Yeah. And then if people weren't telling me, oh, this song was really good or something like that, I'd be like, shit, this song maybe isn't good.
Yeah.
And it's not true. It's just that, like, you know, it could be anything. It could be the marketing was badly done or whatever. But you got to just trust yourself a little more every day that what you're doing, that you're growing as a person, as an artist. And yeah, it's perpetually, like, during your whole life, it will be something that continuously, you can never solve it. You just have to keep on just doing a little better, a little better, a little better.
Yeah.
Well, see, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that there's a meme that I see every once in a while on the internet, and it's like, you have survived 100% of your bad days so far, kind of thing. And it's just like, yeah.
Yet.
So far, you know, but it's true. Like, it's, you know, we've made mistakes and we've done stupid shit, all of us. Like, it's just part of, you know, being a human. But, you know, so far still here.
Yeah, and the thing that sucks as a human being is that we have this tendency of whipping ourselves for past events. Mm-hmm. Hey, it's already done. It's like, why are you beating yourself up over it? It's already passed.
Yeah.
You know? Just keep moving forward and learn from that. Don't learn from it by whipping yourself and using that defensive mechanism, you know, or like you said, like in the wild, it's like, oh, if you do it again, you're dead. You're just lucky you didn't make it out. No, we're not confronted by that anymore, you know?
Well, see, it's funny because, as you said, when you play for an audience or whatever, and you don't get the reaction that you're hoping for from the audience, that entire thing can be transformed into real life too, because I've come across this, whereas, of course, to hide my insecurities, to hide my issues, I became the life of the party, the funny one, the clown. And when I would crack jokes or when I would say something and I wouldn't get a reaction out of the people that I was hanging around with, it like caved me in, because that was the only thing that I had going, is that I had the ability to make people laugh. Yeah. So when I said something hilarious and nobody laughed, I was lost.
Yeah.
So it's as you said, like when you're on stage or when you're recording or everything, and you don't want to rely on the audience to know whether you're doing well or not, because they can be fickle, blah, blah, blah. You have to rely on yourself and how you feel about yourself. That can be translated into real life, that you have to feel right about whatever you're doing, because no matter what you're doing, it can't please everybody.
That's right.
So I ran into that so many times where I was trying to be the funny one to a group of friends, and I'd throw something out there and it was like crickets, and that made me feel worse. And it shouldn't have, because I shouldn't have been out there performing anyway. Like, I should have just been doing it for myself instead of the admiration of everybody around me. So as musicians, it's kind of the same way, as you should be producing music as the way as you should be living your life for yourself. And if other people appreciate it and enjoy it, then that's the bonus of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So live your life how you want to live. And if other people accept it, and if other people enjoy your being around them and your whatever you're bringing to their existence and their lives, that's the bonus of just being who you are.
Yeah, it's the cherry on the sundae.
Right.
I always say, like, if our song reaches people and, you know, does a positive impact in their life, then that for us, that's the, like, of course, the really highest thing. But obviously for us first, it's expressing ourselves. But if we can also reach people at the same time too with the message, then man, we're stellar. Hey guys, I'm going to drop out because I actually charged my phone before this live, and we wore out 95% of it.
Wow.
I was at 100% when I joined this thing. I was like, oh, I'm ready today. And yeah, it's at 4% now.
I think we're going to bring this to an end. So we're going to say goodbye to you and Rohan for now.
Thank you.
Me and Karen will finish up what we have to do and say, and we appreciate you and everybody else who joined in and came on. Thank you
very much, everyone.
So much.
It's our pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Listening. That's really awesome, and commenting and all of that kind of stuff. And I hope that you heard something that resonated with you tonight, and maybe you can take it forward and help with something. But if not, well, no, I hope you did.
Yeah.
But
and
not all these numbers going across the bottom of our screen and everywhere else that you can reach out to find somebody. That's what you need. I mean, we're not here to solve all the problems. We're just here to hopefully let everybody know that getting it out and talking about it is not the wrong thing to do. Like, it's not a stigma. It's not
a sign of weakness.
Right. It's actually a sign of strength.
All right.
So
thank you guys very much for joining us tonight.
Have a good night, guys. Thanks for having me.
There.
Thank you very much for having me as well. So if there's one thing I could quickly say to relate to that that discussion about hitting that record button and like feeling all that anxiety. I find it's especially hard when like from a music perspective, when you're comparing to the thousands of other videos on social media where these people have edited their stuff, used auto-tune like so much on their other tracks. And I'm not saying like there's anything wrong with doing that, but like it makes it even more it worsens that like anxiety feeling like to a large degree. Like when you're recording all in one take, like just naturally, then people are going to judge you more as well because they're used to hearing all these like perfectly tuned auto-tune stuff that isn't like really natural. So like, and that can be applied to social media, like for mental health in a lot of ways as well, like pictures, beauty standards and stuff like that as well. So it's
well, even for us as a podcast, I am very much guilty of looking at other podcasts and seeing how many views, how many listens, how many whatever that they have versus what we have, and not understanding that we're a small, little independent, non-monetized, kind of up and starting podcast, and that I don't need to compare us to anybody else. We do what we do, and we've had amazing guests such as yourself and the boys from Civilian and Chris, who you just saw on, and JS, and the boys from Taming Sari, and like we've had a ton of excellent and fucking fabulous people come on, and they came on tonight to share all of their stories and stuff like that. So obviously we're doing something okay, and that's what we need to take in, and that's what everybody else needs to take in too, is that every single day you're probably doing okay. And really, what else is there to do?
Yeah. And like just to speak on what you said about like the podcast, like you guys are definitely doing a lot, right? Like I normally don't listen to podcasts, but I've been like since I discovered you guys, I've been listening to yours a lot more, like Taming Sari episode, Civilian episode, of course. So like, yeah, no, you guys have an awesome podcast for sure. Like,
don't try and butter us up. Come on.
No, do it all the time.
Do it, yeah. Keep it coming.
Yeah, I mean, like. Yeah, I mean, we just got to keep trying and do our best at what we try to do, what we enjoy, and that is the best thing that we can do. But yeah, it isn't easy to be nice to oneself sometimes. All right, well, we will let you have the rest of your night. It's pretty late, but you have an awesome time, Rohan, and thank you again for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for hosting this and for doing this like fundraiser. Like it's really awesome. So, thank you. Bye.
All right.
Well, there
just
we go.
The two of us.
It is.
We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. So here we are again. We got to thank everybody for coming on.
Yes.
I got to thank my friend Tracy, who during the live stream had issues donating but wanted to. So I'm going to fix that up for her and everything. So thank you everybody for tuning in.
Yes.
And this has been great.
It was scary, actually.
It was oh my Lord, I almost fucking shit myself 2 minutes in.
Yeah, like it was scary to do that. And you and I will talk like that sometimes, but to like do that to the public is not something I generally do. So that was really challenging, and I'm still very glad that I did it. So yeah, and I think that I think it's important to share, and I think it's important that we keep those doors open to people that we care about. So, our doors are open here for all of you guys too. So, if you need something.
That's the one thing I want to express is that we're fairly friendly people.
Most of the time.
I can be a little begrudgingly.
Curmudgeonly is the word.
Yeah, that's the word I'm thinking of. But overall, I'm an okay guy. This was kind of cleansing. I don't know what the fucking word is. It felt good. Kind of. It felt like shit when I was saying it, and then it felt good when I was done saying it. I mean, you personally have heard a lot of what I said tonight, and there's a shit ton more that if we want to express, we can. I have so much more, but I mean, we've been going for 3 and some odd hours now, and I'm fairly sure everybody's tired of hearing fucking some of us complain about our lives.
Well,
in certain ways.
And this won't be the only time that we do something like this either.
No.
So,
I mean, we have a platform, so I hope we can use it for as much good as we can. So again, I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in, and I encourage everybody to jump on our social medias and find that donate link. And if you can, donate to our fundraiser for the Canadian Mental Health Association. And if you can't, we completely understand that. I mean, we are going through tough times. I'm sure thousands of people out there don't have a job or have been laid off or are struggling themselves. But if you know somebody that is struggling, then take a message from this to them and try and help them out. Or just for us, share our message that we're trying to get across. And if more people can just do that, if more people can feel like they can open up, and the other people who aren't struggling as much as some can feel like they can take that in and understand and listen, then I think we can all help each other a little bit.
Yep.
So is that it? Are we done?
I think that we
Hold on.
Oh, what?
Before we go.
Okay.
I'm going to share one more thing. Two more things.
Oh, 2 more.
One, because we completely forgot to do this, but we had another fella who sent us a personal message.
Yes, he did. Indeed.
Hi, friends. My name is Dylan Black. I'm a radio announcer in town, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, at Boom 99.7, playing the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And yes, it is the kickoff to the Canadian Mental Health Awareness Week. Very important week as we discuss some of the strategies, coping mechanisms that are offered through the CMHA. And, of course, the great resources that they have. The past year or so, 13 months or more, I've been dealing with grief. I've been dealing with job loss on different levels. Everything's fine here at the radio station, but it's been a difficult time. And if we can all band together and use the resources that are provided and enjoy fantastic podcasts like this as well, perhaps we can learn, we can grow, and yeah, we can definitely strive. So please reach out to the CMHA whenever you can, and make sure that you are covered when it comes to mental health. I'm Dylan Black. Have a great week, month, year.
So we would like to thank Dylan Black and Daryl, and he's I can't remember his last name, from the Strambellas, who of course couldn't join us as they had shit to do, but were kind enough to send us video messages along. That was absolutely great of them, and it's just nice to hear that, as we said when I listened to when we played the Strambellas one, that people above us in different walks of life, in different areas, in different statures, in different, basically from the top to the bottom, as we talked about Elon Musk, who's upset with himself because he can't get to Mars, to the guy living in a cardboard box on the street. We all have moments of self-doubt, self-kindness, self-whatever. And
always teach.
Yeah, we all need to find a way through it. And because they sent us another clip, and because I'm always cool to play things that people send us, we're gonna do this. We're gonna play a little Civilian again. With a little Adam Gaucher. Now, the one thing I would like to say is for all the bands and all the guests and Jennifer Mulligans and the people that we've had on, I would personally like to thank them for being just amazing people because it makes this easier.
Oh, God, makes it and
reaching out to them to just have them on as guests was one of the worst experiences of my life.
Was really so hard to do at the beginning
because I don't deal with rejection well. Not that any of them rejected us, but there's always the
fear.
There's always the fear of that. So I'd like to thank all of them for just being absolute superstars and for coming on and giving us their time tonight and during their interviews and stuff like that. And then the ones who do stuff like this and then send us personalized little messages about how much they enjoyed.
For those of you who don't know.
Yeah. So Adam's Ashes. If you listen to our interview with them, you'll hear that Chris tries to visually describe his band using this exact picture.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
During an audio podcast, and they were hilarious and kind enough to send us a little note that actually
to commemorate
that. But this shit right here gets me somewhat over my fear. Yeah. I mean, me talking to Karen and recording a podcast is one thing because it goes out to nobody in particular. It's all who chooses to listen to it and shit like that. So as easy as it is for me to kind of let loose and do that, but I'm talking to one of the people in my life that I've trusted for numerous years. And she's always been there. She was my muse years ago when I was doing all my writing, and she would sit there and just listen to me babble to fucking hours upon hours on end when I was talking about all my movie ideas and shit like that. So to have her on this road makes it easier. But then at the same time, to have met and interacted with some of the great people that we have, mm-hmm. who have also made it just as easy and have been so friendly and so
they're welcoming, right? Like it's
welcoming.
It has enriched the experience.
It has, and it's made it that much easier to do things outside my realm. Mm-hmm. Because a band like Atoms to Ashes or Civilian or Resist the Throne or Cynical Sons, or I want to name them all because I don't Taming Stary and
Late Night Trouble.
Late Night Trouble. I want to name them all because I don't want to fucking leave everybody out. Has been so kind to us. Mm-hmm. It has made it that much easier to just talk. Mm-hmm. Because when I realized that I can interview rock stars and movie makers such as like Jennifer Mulligan's mm-hmm. and shit like that, mm-hmm. and they can be so, as you said, welcoming and compassionate and just down to earth individuals, and then they can come on a show and a live stream like this and can demonstrate the fact that they are also human mm-hmm. and they also have their issues. It means a fucking shit ton for me personally, for the podcast, and for just the what we're trying to bring, the awareness that we're trying to bring to mental health and everything. So I'd like to thank all of them fucking insanely huge, and I'd like to thank you most of all for being on the other side of all of this with me, basically for the last like 20 some odd years. And even though there's a huge gap there, it was like when we got back to talking and shit like that, it was like a day hadn't passed and it was back to normal, and it was comforting and weird and awesome. And I'm going to shut down the live stream because I'm about to bawl my eyes out. But anyway, for anybody out there, such as myself, who's dealt with suicide attempts, depression, loss, everything, find that one person. That's all I got. I'm out.